Chapter 1399. After a month of military training, all the freshmen had gotten used to the military academy's rules. Even though they were all very happy that the all-day military training was finally over, they were all crazy alone. They didn't even put their arms around each other's shoulders. The fourth-year seniors and class leaders looked at them and laughed. Little guys, the good days were still ahead. Let's not talk about it now, let's let them be happy first. Yi Qian was also smiling slightly. Captain Xia had once said that the first year of university was the hardest. If they could get through the first year, they would be able to get through the next 4 years. If they couldn't, they could only choose to drop out. On a day like this where the surface temperature was still 34 degrees Celsius in the evening, Yi Qian used half a day to erase some of the criticisms about her not participating in the military training. She also left a very deep impression in the class. The loud horn sounded. The sun had just risen, and the military academy students' day had begun. There were only 3 girls in Yi Qian's class. The 3 girls were in a dorm. When the horn sounded, the 3 girls quickly got up without any delay. Want to laze around in bed? Absolutely impossible. They needed to dress, fold their blankets, wash up, and a series of other actions within 10 minutes. Then they had to line up for morning exercises. I'm on duty this week. I won't wait for you guys. I'll leave early. Yi Qian's movements were much faster than the previous week. This week, it was her turn to be on duty, so she had to leave early. The other girl hurriedly said, "Go, go. Io, where's my belt? I clearly put it here yesterday." Clearly put it here? You clearly put it in my closet. The girl from Qinghai rolled her eyes. She took out her roommate's belt from her closet and threw it over. Su-Wen, can't you remember? There were 2 girls in the dorm. He Jing from Qinghai and Su-Wen from China's capital. Su-Wen's family had a bit of background. Her father was a designer at a certain satellite launch site in China, and her mother was an engineer. She was a very typical delicate girl. She took the belt and blinked a few times. She smiled and said, "Thank you." As she put on the belt, she said to He Jing, "Let's hurry down and help Yi Qian take attendance. It's only the 2nd week, we can't even recognize everyone yet." "Don't worry so much. Yi Qian doesn't have a memory like you. Last week, Qian Yanjun didn't remember everything. She was the one who reminded him." He Jing buckled her belt and urged her roommates to hurry up. "Done, done. Buckle it as you walk. If you're late, the whole class will be skinned." The military academy's morning exercises had a special meaning and strict rules. Being late was absolutely not allowed. As long as one person was late, the punishment would not only be that person, but the entire class would be punished. Su-Wen exhaled heavily and said expressionlessly, "Our training during this period of time has not only shed 1 layer of skin, but 2 layers of skin." That was true. Originally, they thought that the freshman military training would usher in good days. Who knew, it was not at all. He Jing also sighed. The hard days were still going on. It was even worse than the military training before. Sometimes, she really felt that her decision to enroll in the military academy was the wrong one. It was too tiring. Not only was she tired out during the day, she still had to go back to the classroom at night to memorize a thick book of rules and regulations. "I'm not going to waste time with you. If we're really late, we'll only get worse." Her sadness was not over yet. He Jing, who was still sober, drank a mouthful of cold water from last night. She pulled Su-Wen and the 2 of them walked out of the dorm together. The military academy's morning exercises were not like high school and middle school where students ran to the field one by one and randomly found their own class. Chapter 1400. The morning exercises in the military academy were organized into teams. Hearing the call for morning exercises, one row after another ran neatly and orderly to meet up at the designated location of each class. Then, the on-duty personnel checked their attire, counted the number of people, and brought them into the field. Yi Qian arrived at the meeting point and quickly counted the number of people. As team after team came over, the entire third class was assembled in 3 minutes. There were 46 people who were supposed to be present, and 46 people were present. Line up to the right. Yi Qian, who was standing at the very front, ordered loudly. Following the soft sound of shoes on the ground, she walked to the right of the first row after the entire class was assembled and began to lead the team into the field. The sun had already risen. Even though it was only morning, the heat waves were already blowing in their faces. One by one, all the classes entered the large field. As the on-duty personnel called out the slogan, the entire class gathered and straightened their backs in the face of the rising sun. After the on-duty personnel reported the number of people to their superiors, the 30-minute morning exercise began. 1 2, 1 2, 1 2, 3. The neat, monotonous commands rose and fell on the large field. The entire military academy, dressed in short jerseys and shorts, began their day of morning exercises. The wide field was filled with youthful figures. The loud chants of the slogan were like giant waves pouring down from the heavens, carrying with them a grand and majestic aura that spread throughout the entire military academy. His heart thumped loudly as he felt the difference in the morning exercise. Those orderly steps seemed to carry with them the power to destroy everything. Ka-thump, ka-thump, ka-thump. The strictness of the military academy students, the might of the military academy students, and the strength of the military academy students could be seen from this morning exercise. After the 30-minute morning exercise, it was time for breakfast. The sophomores, juniors, and seniors returned to class after breakfast, but the freshmen could not. They still had morning training. Just as the seniors who had trained them had said, the hard days had just begun. The sun on the field flashed white everywhere it touched. The heat was so great that it burned their faces and arms. Everyone stood motionless under the scorching sun, maintaining their military posture. The instructor in charge of the training walked past each student, then constantly corrected the students' irregular movements. Did you eat too much breakfast? You should retract your lower abdomen. Spread your feet 60 degrees apart. Here, it's at least 70 degrees. Did you not remember the mantra for standing in military posture? Recite it again. You, and you, it's all the same. Yes. The few students whose names were called tensed up and straightened their backs as they recited the instructions for standing in a military posture. The tips of your feet are about 60 degrees apart, the heels of your feet are close together, your calves are straight, your abdomen is slightly tucked in, your chest is straight, your shoulders are slightly open, and your arms are naturally hanging down. Your head must be straight, your neck must be straight, your mouth must be closed, and your eyes must be looking forward. It's not tidy, recite it again. Yes. Without a single word of rebuttal, he immediately recited. The instructor walked to the front and stood beside the role model, Yi Jian. He shouted coldly, "There is a role model in front. Those who don't know how to stand, can't stand straight, or feel tired, raise your eyes and take a good look at the role model in your class. As long as you stand like her, you don't have to come tomorrow." Yi Jian, the role model, stood facing the whole class. Under the sunlight, she still maintained her original military posture after an hour. The students at the front could see sweat dripping into her eyes. She didn't move. She just blinked her eyes gently. Chapter 1401. Time passed bit by bit. The sun was getting brighter and brighter. The instructors were still shuttling back and forth in the queue. Some people were tired of standing and began to relax their shoulders. Some people couldn't stand it anymore and wanted to slack off. They're quite brave, standing at the front of the class. Originally, Yi Qian was the only one standing in front. After an hour, there were 4 people standing beside Yi Qian. More and more sweat flowed down their faces like rain. Their summer-wear shorts and shirts were drenched from their collars to their chests, armpits, back, waists. Only the corner of their short sleeves was not drenched. Their sweat soaked their clothes and stuck to their skin. The sun was scorching, making their skin prickle and itch. It made them want to reach out and scratch it. Everyone wanted to scratch it, but no one dared to. They endured the physical and mental torture. Facing the cold gaze of the instructor, they kept their backs straight and looked straight ahead. Straighten your legs. If you're a man, straighten your back. The instructor's voice came from the back. It was cold, icy, and piercing into the students' ears. Look straight ahead, don't look sideways. Don't blink when the wind blows. Stand like a pine tree. Shape like steel. 3 straight, 3 flat, 3 straight, 2 straight, 2 straight, 1 straight. Remember all of this. They weren't the only ones who needed to learn military posture. Everyone who entered the army and the military academy had to learn it. When standing in military posture, no matter when, even if it was just a simple action of sitting down, it would reveal the might and masculinity of a soldier. Your every word and action would also reveal the temperament of a soldier who was as lofty as a mountain and as tall as a pine tree. At this moment, everyone's eyes were red. Yi Qian was no exception. Tears flowed into their eyes and stung them. No one dared to raise their hands to rub their eyes. Even if they were to tear up, they had to endure it. 90 minutes later, standing at the feet of every student with red eyes, there was a puddle of water on the ground. It was a puddle of water left behind by the sweat that flowed down the leg of their pants and splashed onto the wet ground. The pants started to get wet from the belt, especially where the middle finger was. Most of the sweat that flowed down the arm gathered to the middle finger. The seam of the pants was completely wet. Reporting. My head. Someone didn't even finish his sentence before he fell forward and fainted from heatstroke. This was the first student to faint from heatstroke. It was much better than the previous 2 days. The previous 2 days, the students fainted one after another. It was as if they had really fallen on the battlefield and didn't wake up again. The students who were standing, of course. After all, there were students who fainted from heatstroke during the freshmen's military. Bye the military posture. Bye the new. However, standing in a military posture now was different from the freshmen's military training. The freshmen had to stand in a military posture, but it wasn't as strict. If you moved occasionally, the senior and class monitor would glance at you and it would be fine. They would only remind you if you moved too much. Unlike now, the only thing missing was a cross wrapped around his back. Bye. To that. Bye. Class. Bye. Class. A student from class 3 fainted from heatstroke. The instructor helped the student who fainted from heatstroke up with one hand and turned on the walkie-talkie to contact the doctor. It's not serious. Chapter 1402. Fainting was not considered serious. The students' hearts trembled as they pursed their lips and continued to endure. No one took a second look because the instructor would help this student who had fainted from heatstroke. The ambulance parked at the front of the field arrived in less than 3 minutes. 2 male soldiers came down and skillfully carried the fainted student into the ambulance. The door closed and the ambulance drove away, leaving only a row of exhaust fumes. No one knew how long they had been standing there. The instructor suddenly took out an alarm clock and set the time before placing it on the field. There are still 43 minutes until the 2-hour mark. You can rest after standing there for 2 hours. They had clearly been standing there for 1.5 hours, but the instructor said there were still 43 minutes left. So much time. It was very quiet around class 3. The students' breathing had been adjusted well, and the alarm clock placed on the field went tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. It went on and on, destroying everyone's spirit on a deeper level. None of the students didn't want it to end as soon as possible. The more they thought about it, the slower time seemed to pass. The slower time passed, the more unbearable it was. More and more sweat flowed down their bodies, and they became more and more nervous. Finally, another student shook his body and another one fainted. It was as if there was a butterfly effect. In less than 10 minutes, 5 people had fainted. When the instructor saw this, the corners of his mouth tightened slightly. Their mental fortitude was still a little weak. They knew the time and how much time they had left. They felt that they might not be able to last that long. Their bodies might not be able to take it. Time kept telling them that they were not going to make it. Soon, they lost their willpower and collapsed. 20 minutes later, 7 people fainted and 2 returned. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Time was still passing slowly. The standing students felt their limbs were so stiff that they did not feel like their own limbs. They listened to the sound of time and endured the most difficult time. There are still 18 minutes left. The instructor reminded them, intentionally or otherwise. He was constantly training the students' willpower. Why did they have to stand in military posture? It was to train the military academy students. As reserve military officers, if their willpower was not strong enough, how could they lead troops into battle? How could they win battles? Who else can't straighten their head or straighten their back? Another 20 minutes. The instructor started shuttling back and forth in the group again. His eyes were like X-rays as he scanned the students. He didn't dare to relax for even a second when he saw that they weren't sweating. Look ahead, there's a role model. Think about why she can do it, but why can't you? It's not that you can't do it, it's that you're afraid of hardship and tiredness. You think too highly of yourselves. Being squeamish in the army will be fatal. The most important thing for all of you to do now is to get rid of your fatal squeamishness. Don't let it become your burden. Not only did he have to teach the students how to stand properly, but he also had to remind them from time to time how to overcome their fears. As the role model, Yi Qian led the entire class to stand under the sun, motionless in their initial positions. They listened to the ticking of the clock and felt the time pass by bit by bit. Don't think that time is unbearable, and don't think that you can't hold on. You don't need to think about anything. Just look straight ahead and stand straight. That's all. Ding-ling-ling, ding-ling-ling. The alarm clock that only made a ticking sound suddenly let out an ear-piercing sound, telling all the students that they had been standing in a military posture for 2 whole hours. Chapter 1403. At this moment, no one dared to relax their bodies. It was just the alarm clock that rang at the set time. It was not the time for the instructor to dismiss them. The students' performance made the instructor, who looked serious, finally show a slight smile. He blew the whistle to signal the end of the class. Everyone, move around. If you don't have enough water, there's a water tanker in front. After standing for 2 hours, they were seriously dehydrated. How could 1 pot of hot water be enough? They needed at least 2 pots of water. Although the class was dismissed, the limbs of the students were so stiff that even their muscles and joints seemed to have hardened. A simple action of bending over to pick up the kettle made them look like 80 or 90 years old people. They could not bend over for a long time. Yi Qian moved his limbs and slightly bounced on the ground for more than 10 times to move the muscles of his legs. Then, he bent over to pick up the kettle. Do me a favor. Do me a favor. A student called Yi Qian with a bitter face. I can't bend over. My legs are like saws. Once I move, I feel pain inside. Then, another student also needed Yi Qian's help. And here, Yi Qian. Help, help. After a week of getting along, the students in the class had gotten used to Yi Qian's strong physical strength. Song Jiqiu picked up the kettle for the 2 boys and joked, Do you still need to carry you back? Just grit your teeth and sit down. You'll be fine after shaking your legs. His physical strength was good, so it was easy for him to do it for a few days. During the break, the instructor was not as serious as during the training. He would help the students pick up the kettle and even massage their legs. Upon hearing this, he raised his voice and said, He's right. It's just a military posture. Do you know how the national flag class does it? It takes twice as long as you. The forward kick is delicate. The distance between the 2 feet is not even half a millimeter. You still have to stand with both feet. They have to stand with one foot for so long. Why did the soldiers look tall and mighty when they stood there? It was not because they wore military uniforms, but because they practiced day after day and year after year. You're all learning from Yi Qian and training with him. His military posture is the same as that of a veteran. You guys have to shout for help when you pick up a kettle. If you really go to the battlefield in the future, don't tell me you'll have to ask someone for bullets? Nowadays, the teacher mentioned Yi Qian the most. The students were already used to it, so they didn't show any signs of dissatisfaction. There was nothing they could do about it. She was indeed amazing, so they had no choice but to admit defeat. Su-won, who had drunk half a bottle in one go, winked at Yi Qian and asked, "Do you feel any pressure?" "It's all right. I'm doing my best." Yi Qian blinked and said softly, "There are only 3 girls in our class. We can't lose." After Su-won heard this, he patted Yi Qian heavily on the shoulder and said earnestly, "It's all thanks to you, Yi Qian. He Jing and I will support you in spirit. In terms of actions, I can't support you." He Jing, who had just returned from refilling the kettle, heard this. She sat down with difficulty and said, "I have a goal, unlike you." She then said softly to Yi Qian, "I'm a little hunchbacked. I want to practice by myself at night. Is there any way to improve quickly?" He Jing was a girl who was very strict with herself. Her brother also graduated from the National University of Science and Technology. According to her, the reason why she applied for the National University of Science and Technology was because of a bet with someone. Who was that someone? Su-won and Yi Qian did not ask, but from her eyes, they could tell that this someone was not an ordinary person. Chapter 1404. There's a trick, but it's very difficult. Yi Qian thought back to how Principal Chern had taught him the trick of military posture, and said to He Jing, "Prepare a few pieces of paper as thick as poker cards. I'll show you the trick tonight." There were only 3 girls in the class, and they were all good students with good personalities. Even though Yi Qian had only known them for a week, he had already established a friendship with them. The boys who were closer to them naturally heard it too. They rubbed their faces and looked at each other. No matter what, they couldn't lose to the girls. At night, they would have to practice again. The whistle sounded again, and all the freshmen finally endured until it was time for lunch. Once lunchtime arrived, even the instructors could not delay because the military academy had a rule about lunchtime. If they wanted to eat after lunchtime, there would be no more food. Therefore, the instructors could not delay lunchtime either. Line up, reorganize, and do a head count. After a series of actions, the students of Class 3 could finally head to the cafeteria. Everyone walked quickly, afraid that if they were late, there would be no meat, only vegetables and a thin soup. With every step the boys took, they could hear their stomachs rumble. Then, like a long dragon, the students of each class rushed over from all directions, all heading towards the same destination. With a step command, they quickly stopped moving forward. Yi Qian, the on-duty officer, stood at the front and began the chant training. Every lunchtime chant training was the moment Yi Qian wanted to laugh the most. In order to get into the cafeteria earlier, they shouted the chant with all their might. The instructor had once said that the chant for lunchtime was, "Shout with your life," and this was not false at all. They were indeed shouting with their lives. For a time, the chant in front of the cafeteria grew louder and louder. This was lunchtime for the military academy students. From their first year until their last year, when they graduated, it was always like this. Later on, Yi Qian had returned to his alma mater a long time after he graduated. When he saw the youthful faces that already showed the might of soldiers, he said to the guard beside him, "Every time I come in, I will immediately take a look at what dishes are served. Which dish should I choose? Which dish looks good? Which dish I probably won't be able to get? My 4 years of fighting for food in the military academy is still fresh in my memory." As the sun rose and set, Yi Qian passed the 8th day of school. Her days were so fulfilling that she felt like a fish in water, adapting to military school life much faster than any of her classmates. At night, all the students had to be dressed neatly. They had to wear their military caps, tie their belts properly, and button up their shirts properly. If they were not dressed neatly and were seen by the pickets, they would be publicly announced. It would definitely be a tragedy. The classroom was similarly quiet. On the large podium, there wasn't a single teacher. No, it should be said that they hadn't seen any teachers who would stay in the classroom at night. They were all consciously following the rules. To be able to enter the military academy, other than straight A students, they were all straight A students. Their memory was superb. They memorized the thick books of rules and regulations very quickly. In the end, they would close the books and recite the words silently. Pass. He Jing did not have many plans for herself tonight. She still needed to ask Yi Qian for tips on military posture. Walking around the school grounds at night was also prohibited. Of course, if you strengthened your training, you wouldn't have to worry about being caught by the pickets. Put the books on your head. When standing, don't we need to lean forward slightly to put gravity on the soles of our feet? When your front foot steps on the stairs, your back heel hangs in the air. Don't you feel that your center of gravity is leaning forward? Yi Qian demonstrated. Give me the paper you prepared. Chapter 1405. He Jing clicked her tongue as she hurriedly passed the piece of paper to Yi Qian and waited for her to continue. Gently place your middle finger against the seam of your pants. Place half of the paper on your middle finger and leave the other half outside. You also need to clamp the paper between your knees. Keep your legs straight and taut. Yi Qian demonstrated the entire process under the light of the staircase. Yi Qian never hid anything that was beneficial to the group. She told them everything she knew, but how much each person learned depended on themselves. It wasn't something she could control. It was also because of this selfless dedication that Yi Qian had always been popular among her classmates. Even though it was tough in high school, she still tutored her classmates. She even helped her roommates get into the top universities in the country. Even though Yi Qian had left the province, her name could still be heard in the province. Those students who had received her help were still grateful to her. Every time she opened the little penguin phone, the first thing she heard was a series of DDD sounds. They were all messages from her high school classmates. He Jing thought Yi Qian would only give her simple reminders. Who knew that she would teach her so diligently? For a moment, he didn't feel good in his heart. He felt ashamed of himself for having such petty thoughts. Don't drop the book. Don't drop the paper between your fingers and thighs either. Yi Qian placed the book on He Jing's head, then placed the paper between her hands and thighs. The last piece of paper. Yi Qian smiled and pointed at her knees. Here's the main point. You have to place a piece of paper there too. Let's make it clear first. If the book or paper drops, we have to add time. Let's stack it in units of 10 minutes. She bent over and placed the paper between He Jing's knees. At the same time, she heard He Jing and the faint gasps from the floor above. This is too cruel. He Jing felt her knees hurt. Yi Qian, don't tell me that this is how you practice. This is how I practice. My uncle is a retired soldier. He likes to make me stand in military posture. I started standing in middle school. Classmate, why do you think I got the title of role model? It's because I've suffered more than you. Everyone was suddenly enlightened. So that's how it was. No wonder he was so powerful. He Jing understood, and so did the students who were eavesdropping upstairs. After deliberately explaining, Yi Qian gently patted He Jing's knee. All right, just stand there. I'll time it. Then, he raised his head and said to the students who were eavesdropping upstairs, You all understand, right? If you understand, then stand together. From now on, stand for half an hour. F***ck, she seems to have discovered us? I don't think so. I have to cover my nose to breathe. She must have found out. Otherwise, she wouldn't have said, "Stand together if you understand." She must have found out. Stop squatting. What are you squatting for? You've been discovered. 3 seconds later, a soft sound came from upstairs. Then, Qian Yanjun said awkwardly, we don't mean anything else. We just want to learn. In the morning, when the boys heard the conversation between Yi Qian and He Jing, they thought that, as boys, how could they fall behind the girls? After discussing it for a while, they decided to let Qian Yanjun and Song Jiqiu take the lead to sneak a peek. When they heard Yi Qian's words, all of them were so shocked that their jaws dropped. He Jing did not know that there were people upstairs. When she heard the sound, she lost her balance, and the paper between her knees fell. Chapter 1406. Add another 10 minutes. Yi Qian kindly reminded them and said to the boys, "You can start now. If you don't have enough paper, stand like He Jing. Books on her head, paper in her hands, knees in her knees, and feet in the air. This posture is so painful." The boys' faces turned pale. Song Jiqiu's face was stiff. She twitched her mouth and said, No, I want to sleep. I have to get up early tomorrow. Next time. Too cruel. It could be seen from He Jing's expression that she was in pain. Since they were here, Yi Qian would not let them go. He blocked their way with a smile and raised his eyebrows. He looked at the frightened boys and said, "Give it a try. It's quite interesting. Us girls are already working so hard. Isn't it a bit unreasonable for you guys to not work harder?" In the end, all 6 boys stood up. Like He Jing, they stood on the stairs with their heels in the air and put their big brimmed hats on top of their head. "I think it's better to use hats instead of books. He Jing, you should use a hat too." Yi Qian took down her book and put her hat on top of her head. The hat is soft and lighter than the books. It's more suitable for practice. He Jing did not say anything and let Yi Qian ask her to do it. She had to work hard. She had to pass the formation training. She could not be a burden to the class. Qian Yanjun tried his best to lean forward and said with a bitter face, "We still want to use books. Books are heavy, it's not easy." Before he could finish his sentence, the hat on his head slipped forward. Qian Yanjun reflexively reached out to grab it, but he lost his balance and fell backward. Yi Qian supported his back with one hand and helped the boy who fell backward. "Don't think too much when you're standing. Distract your attention." The instructor took out the alarm clock this morning and set the time on purpose. Actually, it's to train your willpower. While we train our willpower, we have to learn how to distract ourselves. Yesterday, 6 or 7 people fell down in the last 43 minutes because we cared too much about time. We put all our energy into time, which affected our brains and produced negative psychological suggestions. In order not to be affected by negative psychological cues, it's best to learn how to distract yourself and think about something else. He straightened Qian Yanjun and put the military cap back on his head. "Every time the cap drops, you'll get an extra 10 minutes. F***ck, it's for real," Qian Yanjun exclaimed. Yi Qian looked at the hat that looked like it was about to fall off again, and calmly reminded him, "Drop it again, in 20 minutes. Also, put away the catchphrase that you boys like the most. If your speech is not in line with the image of a soldier, the pickets will also take care of it." This time, Song Jiqiu, who was standing at the top, did not say anything. She smiled bitterly. Since things had come to this point, how could she lie? Of course, he was serious. Her cousin had mentioned her a few times. Every time he talked about Yi Qian, the expression on his face would change. At first, she had thought that her cousin was interested in Yi Qian. Later, she could not help but ask about it. Her cousin even looked serious and answered very seriously, "There's a kind of person who can make people appreciate and respect her from the bottom of their hearts, and it's an honor to know her. Yi Qian belongs to this kind of person. As long as you've been with her, you'll see that she has qualities that are more real than real gold. She's serious and responsible to people and matters, and her behavior is open and aboveboard. She'll do her best to help the students who ask her for help. Chapter 1407. Now, it seemed that his cousin was not lying at all. Yi Jian was indeed a woman who was serious and responsible. She had an extraordinary charisma. Thinking of this, Song Zhiqiu's expression became more serious. Yi Qian, who was helping Qian Yanjun to stand upright, did not see him standing on the top step. He turned the hat around and put it back on Qian Yanjun's head. He looked at him with a smile. Think of the hat as your head. I think you can hold on. If the hat falls off, your head will fall off. Don't you think it's very serious? Qian Yanjun was speechless. It was not just a little serious, it was absolutely serious. He Jing tried hard not to laugh out loud. Thinking of the hat as her head, she did not dare to drop the hat. The other boys were suffering but could not say anything. They had come out purely to be companions. They did not know that, when they were caught, they had to stand in a military posture. If they did not stand properly, they would be punished. When they could finally rest at night, they had to continue. Life was tough. Yi Qian checked their postures and corrected them. Then he stood on the last step together with them. He maintained the same posture with their heels in the air and stood in a military posture with them. Our heads and necks must be straight. We have to be upright and upright. We have to have a correct attitude. We have to be clear about our goals and take every step well. We have to raise our heads and stand upright. We have to tell everyone that we can overcome difficulties no matter how difficult they are. Our knees will naturally be strong. Our heads can be broken and our blood can flow. Only when we are strong and unyielding soldiers can we show our strength. We have to straighten our legs. If we are soft, we have no confidence. If we are soft, we have to give in to the difficulties in front of us. Our eyes will naturally look forward. Don't think that you are so great. Soldiers should not be arrogant. What we need is to look forward and do our best to complete your mission. Keep your lips shut. Talk less and do more. Don't brag all day long about how capable you are. No matter how beautiful your words are, one thing done well by others is better than 1,000 words from your mouth. Yi Qian repeated what Principal Chen had said to the students who had asked him for advice tonight. Unmoving as pine trees, straight as spears, eyes like torches, expression like majestic, indomitable spirit, good boys and girls. Unmoving like a pine tree, tall and straight like a spear, eyes like torches, expression majestic, indomitable good children. The sound was sonorous and powerful, and it contained a majestic aura that caused the pickets who were about to go upstairs to check the situation to stop. It turned out that the students did not intend to stay in the teaching building, but were using the break time to practice standing in military posture. The flashlight flashed, and the leader of the pickets led his teammates up the stairs step by step. Yi Qian had already heard the sound of footsteps. At this time, only the pickets came over with flashlights. He raised his voice and said, "Put your IDs in your jacket pockets. He Jing, don't move. You have a piece of paper in your hands. I'll get it for you. Boys, pay attention to the balance of the hat. If it falls, an extra 10 minutes will be added." The snow-white light shone on everyone's backs, and the picketers were startled. "Comrade, what are you doing?" In school, the picketers didn't call the students classmates. Yi Qian was the first to take out his ID. He smiled and explained, "We're practicing military posture. We'll be done in half an hour." The school picketers had the right to check the ID of any student. They even had the right to check the ID of a PhD student who stayed at the National University of Science and Technology. If they caught someone violating military discipline, they would take away the student's ID and register it. After that, they would be notified at the weekly meeting. Then, the team leaders would come to punish you. The class leaders would come to talk to you. The more serious cases would also come to talk to you. Chapter 1408. In short, as long as you were registered by the pickets, you would be anxious and tired for 2 consecutive weeks. The freshmen hadn't sensed the terror of the pickets yet. Even Yi Jian hadn't noticed it. The pickets didn't check the documents immediately. Instead, they observed them for a while before nodding and saying to Yi Jian, "That's a good idea. It'll definitely be effective if you stand there for a year. He's quite polite, unlike how my senior brothers described him to be fierce." Yi Qian murmured in his heart before he answered, 1 hour every night. You'll get something in a month. I have an idea. But you'll affect other students if you stand in the corridor of the school. I won't warn you tonight. Be careful next time. After returning Yi Jian's ID card, the head of the pickets smiled as the dazzling flashlight swept across the hovering heels of the few people. The other 2 pickets checked everyone's IDs and confirmed that they had not done anything else because they were practicing military posture. The 3 of them then went downstairs. They're not as fierce as the senior brothers said. I feel that they're quite polite. That's because... A boy had just opened his mouth when his hat fell off his head. He changed his tone. Ah damn. Yi Qian said coldly, if you said that just now, your name will definitely be on the weekly meeting. Watch your words. 10 more minutes. You've lost your hat. Bro, please forgive me. I want to go back to the dormitory to sleep. Stand still. Don't fall on me. He even spoke slowly for fear that he would lose his hat if he spoke loudly. Time seemed to pass by casually. When Yi Qian said that it was over, Qian Yanjun still did not believe him. No way. 40 minutes passed so quickly? 40 minutes this morning felt like 40 days to me. Of course it's fast. After Yi Qian finished speaking, a boy from the province of Huolu City asked Qian Yanjun with a smile, "What did you use to divert your attention just now?" Qian Yanjun put on his big brimmed hat and habitually checked if the collar buckle was fastened properly. He said proudly, "I'm doing physics questions. I'm doing physics questions in my head. I really don't feel like time is passing quickly." "I'm memorizing English words," Song Jichu replied. He Jing rolled her eyes at them and answered honestly, "I memorized the rules and conditions in the booklet. Didn't the teacher say that we should take our time in year 1 and year 2, and focus on studying in year 3 and year 4? You guys only think about studying every day. Now that we focus on studying, it's fine as long as we don't fail our subjects and don't take make-up exams. Do you still think that you're a high school student and study hard day and night?" Learning in a military academy was not as important as learning in a key university. For example, if a very capable but sickly top student were to enter a military academy, he would realize that the capital he was so proud of was nothing in terms of physical fitness, military affairs, and internal affairs. After she finished speaking, she asked Yi Qian, "What about you?" "Me?" Hearing this, Yi Qian paused for a moment before answering honestly, "I'm thinking about my class schedule. There's a cryptography class that I find quite interesting. I plan to go to the library tomorrow night to look for some cryptography books to read. I'm also very interested in this. When I was in year 2, I was obsessed with Morse code. It was because of this that I applied for the military academy." The boy from Shanghai took over the topic excitedly. "I also like affine code very much. Yi Qian, what about you? Are you obsessed with that one?" Chapter 1409. Qian Yanjun, Song Jiqiu, and the others raised their heads in silence. They really didn't understand these things. Yi Qian, who was also a top student, thought for a while before answering, "I don't particularly like any of them, and I'm not crazy about any of them. But someone told me about them before, so I'm a little interested." Xia Jinyuan sent her to school to report. Along the way, he talked about most of the classes, especially cryptography, such as the tripartite cipher, Adnef-GVX cipher, Boole cipher, and Sifong cipher. He also suggested that she study cryptography carefully. Yi Qian, who had not been very interested in cryptography before, was also interested because he said that he was good at cryptography. The Shanghai top student was less excited after hearing that. He said, "Oh," discouraged, but in less than 3 seconds, he did not give up and asked, "Have you tried to learn about cryptography?" "Learned about it?" Yi Qian thought for a while and said with a smile, "I'm going to learn about it. I also want to learn it better." Yes, yes, we must learn it well. There are also experiments in cryptography. Yi Qian, we can do experiments together in the future. The clean and gentle Shanghai boy's eyes were shining because Yi Qian was the only girl he had met who was interested in cryptography. He would spare no effort to persuade her to study cryptography with him. Not only Morse cipher, but also many other cryptography. Virginia cipher, Etbash cipher, they are all alphabetic words, very interesting. The rest of the people, including Yi Qian, were confused. "Excuse me, what kind of astronomy are you talking about?" The Shanghai boy really liked it. He talked about Virginia cipher. Military intelligence needs to be encrypted, and usually a key is used. Only by finding the key can we get access to the file. I think our cryptography will definitely have the Virginia code, and by then, Morse cipher? Sherlock Holmes cipher? He Jing was completely confused. While listening to the Shanghai boy continue talking about cryptography that she did not understand, she whispered to Yi Qian, "I'm not only feeling the pressure physically, I'm also feeling the pressure in my studies." Yi Qian pursed his lips and smiled. "I don't know either, but these things do need to be learned. They'll be included in the exam, and they'll be tested every year. If we don't understand, we can learn. We have a ready-made genius in our class. If we don't understand, we can ask for leave from him." The world of a top student was not easy to understand. As for the world of a prodigy, he could not see through it at all. The Shanghai boy could be categorized as a prodigy, who asked him not to be able to understand what he was saying. At 10 o'clock in the evening, the campus was still brightly lit. There were faint shadows walking back and forth in the field. They were all students who were not physically fit and were secretly training themselves. The lights in the 3rd and 4th year schools were not completely switched off. The prodigious senior brothers and sisters were still making use of their break time to study. They did not neglect their physical fitness, studies, and housework. Yi Jian looked up at the classroom where the lights were still on and the square windows were illuminated. She looked into the distance with her quiet and bright eyes. 5 years ago, was Xia Jinyuan as hard-working as he was in this school? "Those are prodigies who will be selected as top students," He Jing said with emotion. During the freshmen's military training, the senior brother and class monitor told us that after 4 years of graduation, there will be a very small number of people who will be selected as top students with extremely harsh conditions. A very small number of people who will be selected as top students with extremely harsh conditions. Chapter 14:10. How many are there? How harsh are the requirements? Yi Qian couldn't help but ask. Xia Jinyuan once said that he would be evaluated as a top student when he graduated. At that time, she didn't think it was that difficult. After all, she had been evaluated as a top student every year since the 2nd semester of her 2nd year of middle school. When she heard that, she said disapprovingly, "I get it every year. It's not rare." He Jing's expression was a little withered. "It's so difficult. Those who really get top students are no longer ordinary people." That exaggerated? But seeing that her withered expression contained some respect, Yi Qian couldn't help but gather his thoughts. For 4 years, all subjects have to score 90 marks. There's no minimum score. All subjects have to score 90 marks. All physical subjects have to be excellent. You can't even get good. For 4 years, no bad record, no record of picketing, no illness, no leave, no demerit points in class, etc., etc. He Jing finished in one breath. Her expression was sad. In short, if someone really gets top students after 4 years, they're the best in the whole school. Yi Qian thought about what Xia Jinyuan said to her. In the car, he looked indifferent and lazy as he talked about his 4 years in the military academy. My minor languages are German and Spanish. I probably had some talent in languages, so I got a level 8 specialized Esper. As for physical fitness, I got excellent. Because I also participated in a few competitions in school, I was evaluated as a top student after graduation. He said it so casually, as if getting top students was a simple matter. Now that she heard it, he was worthy of being called the all-round soldier king. His performance in school was so outstanding that it far surpassed many of his classmates. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble from being seen by the picketers, the girls walked far ahead and spoke softly so that the boys behind them didn't know what they were talking about. When they reached a fork in the road, both sides smiled and said goodbye before returning to their own dorms. As soon as they separated, the boys looked at each other and collectively let out a long sigh. To be honest, it was really stressful to walk with Yi Jian. It was like walking with the chief. When she spoke, her voice was soft and unhurried. When she smiled, there was even a gentleness between her beautiful eyebrows, like the gentleness of the Jiangnan River village, which made people feel scared. Just now, Yi Qian didn't say that we'll continue tomorrow night. I guess he didn't say that. Qian Yanjun twisted his stiff neck. Thinking about what had happened before, he gritted his teeth. Her way of standing is more tiring than standing in the daytime. 40 minutes is equivalent to 2 hours of our daytime. But we can't deny that it is indeed. Song Jiqiu's neck was also stretched. She's tired she couldn't move for 40 minutes. If we want to improve progress, we can use her way. It's useless if we only improve quickly. The whole class has to improve quickly to have an effect. While they were talking about Yi Jian, He Jing was also talking about them. Wu Bingqing's physical fitness is good, and his studies are good too. He seems to be quite knowledgeable about cryptography. I'm afraid there will be a top student in our class. As he spoke, he looked Yi Jian up and down and said with a smile, "You're not bad either. You also have a lot of potential. Then we'll all be first lieutenants, and you'll be a captain." Excellent students would be directly rewarded. After graduation, they would be awarded the rank of captain instead of first lieutenant. Yi Qian was a little excited after hearing that. Chapter 14:11. Xia Jinyuan graduated 5 years ago, but he still held the rank of major. That was strange. Why hadn't there been any changes? Yi Qian thought to herself. She smiled and said, "Commendations are tempting. The rank of captain, just thinking about it makes me excited." Who said it wasn't? When I heard it, I was filled with pride. As they spoke, they arrived at the dormitory. The lights in the dormitory were about to be turned off at 10:30. He Jing saw that it was getting late and quickened her step. Suwon had already fallen asleep on the bed. She was exhausted. She wanted to practice standing with them, but she didn't have the energy to do so. At 10:20, the bedtime signal sounded. The two of them quickly got ready for bed. Their clothes, belts, military caps, short sleeves and shorts were all placed in the designated places so that it would be convenient for them to grab them the next day. They didn't have to look for delays everywhere. The bedtime signal sounded again. The white lights in each dormitory went out almost at the same time. All the dormitory buildings were plunged into darkness. The night insects played a symphony of nature. After a while, the students who were tired from the day fell asleep. Yi Qian laid on the bed but couldn't fall asleep. She thought about what Xia Jinyuan had said to her. She thought about his life in the military academy and his hard work. If she wanted to be as outstanding as him, even if she got into the military academy, she couldn't relax. She had to continue working hard. She had to learn from him. She had to get close to him. Through her own efforts, she had to become an indomitable soldier like him. Yi Qian closed her eyes and thought deeply. That elegant and handsome face appeared in her mind. The corners of her mouth lifted slightly, and she gradually fell asleep. The next day, during the drill class, Class 3 all obediently took off their military caps under the smiling eyes of the instructor. Then the instructor continued to smile and said, "In order to make you all stand at attention as soon as possible, I've decided to take the advice of the boys." Hearing this, Yi Jian had a bad feeling in her heart. It couldn't be. Did they tell the instructor? Soon, her premonition came true. As the leader of the procession, Yi Jian was the first to take the brand new poker cards from the instructor's hands. The instructor chuckled softly and said, "Your uncle must be a very outstanding soldier." "Thank you." Yi Qian also lowered her voice. She really did not expect that the boy would tell the teacher. Great, now there was going to be a lot of trouble. Wasn't there going to be a lot of trouble? In a while, someone's big-brimmed hat would fall off. Over time. After a while, someone dropped a poker card. Over time. Drop the hat, drop the cards, over time, over time. After the first day of class, it caused even more public outrage. Everyone said that they wanted to find out which brat had suggested such a trick to the instructor. Yi Qian and He Jing fell silent. Fortunately, the instructor had mentioned a few boys and not girls. The few boys who had asked the instructor for help tried their best to join in the fight against the common enemy. Faced with the anger of more than 30 students in the class, they did not dare to reveal that they were the boys that the instructor had mentioned. Even after graduation, they still couldn't find out who the boys were, and it became one of the unsolved cases of the third class. Soon, the third class also found a psychological balance. The rest of the teachers of the first year felt that this method was very good and immediately used it in their classes. In the end, the school leaders were alerted and praised the spirit of the third class and this batch of freshmen for their hard-working spirit. In the end, they called on all the teachers and students of the school to learn from the freshmen. Very good, the students of the third class who had started first felt even better. Chapter 14:12. The second-year seniors were fine, but the third-year and fourth-year seniors were having a hard time. Ruthless, ruthless, too ruthless. Which class came up with this idea? I must find out who it is. The boys in Class 3 felt that they had gotten themselves into big trouble, so they worked even harder when they were standing. They were afraid that the teacher would yell out their names and criticize them. What's wrong? You can't even stand properly? It's just a hat, not a piece of equipment. Can't hold a poker card? You have to hold it even if you can't. What, didn't you suggest this? Do you want me to call on the whole class to follow suit? What? Why can't you do it yourself? If the instructor really said that, the boys in Class 3 would become the public enemy of the whole school. In order not to expose their identities, the boys finished standing during the day and continued to eat at night. They were afraid. Yi Qian laughed. The whole field was filled with fighting spirit. It was very contagious. No one knew who came up with this idea, except for the few pickets. However, they only remembered that they had seen it. As for who it was, they could not remember. Under the scorching sun, the training on the field was carried out. Every student was wearing their summer uniform and was exposed to the sun. Everyone had probably gotten used to it after being exposed to the sun for a long time. In the end, no one fainted from heatstroke. After a week, all the freshmen could really stand in a proper military posture. However, in the words of the instructor, they only had the form, but not the bone. If they wanted to stand in a proper military posture, they would need at least half a year before they could form the bone. Bones represented the majesty and coldness of a soldier just by standing there casually. In the third class, Yi Jian was the only one who could stand in a military posture. This was not what the teacher said, but what all the students agreed. They all agreed that Yi Jian was the girl who deserved to be number one. When the school wanted to choose a freshman representative to be the flag bearer for the National Day celebration, Class 3 voted for Yi Qian. Even Class 1 and Class 2 voted for Yi Qian. Yi Qian, who was not used to walking in public, struggled for a while. Standing in the General Affairs Director's office, Yi Qian was still wondering if he could change the person in charge. The General Affairs Director recognized Yi Qian. When he saw the young lady standing in front of him with a military aura, he silently nodded in his heart. He pulled open the drawer of his desk and said with a pleasant expression, "Come, come, come, Yi Qian. Take a look at the grace of our previous flag bearers and flag raisers. All of the student representatives who were elected are now doing very well in their respective positions." The thick photo album opened, and from the black and white photos to the old color photos, not only did they see the valiant and heroic appearance of the school flag bearers, but they also witnessed the military uniform reform of our country. When she flipped the photo to the 9th grade, a slightly youthful face with an unforgettable side profile entered her eyes. The side profile of the flag bearer in the photo was too familiar. It was so familiar that if this person stood in front of her, she would be able to recognize him with her eyes closed. Xia Jinyuan. The Xia Jinyuan she was familiar with. The elegant and dangerous Xia Jinyuan who had a soft spot for her. This is the most outstanding student. From the time he entered the school to the time he graduated, he had been the flag bearer for every year. In the past, just like you, he did not like to walk in front. The General Affairs Director laughed. He even poured a glass of cold water for Yi Qian and set it aside. After thinking for half a day, he finally thought it through. After that, he had to attend the opening ceremony every year. If he didn't, the school would feel that something was missing. He has a good image and temperament. He can take on big responsibilities. Chapter 14-13. Yi Qian couldn't help but smile. She found out more about his past. Listening to it, she felt as if it was happening right beside her. He had left too many traces in this school, and she could even find out about his past from the teachers. Inexplicably, Yi Qian felt much happier. He had always been her goal. Now she was following the path he had walked, chasing after him step by step, moving forward. And he was not far away, quietly waiting for her arrival. Yi Qian closed the photo album and became the representative of the freshmen, taking on the role of the flag guard. At this time, the freshmen had entered the marching formation training. The formation training consisted of marching, running, and marching. The marching was the best way to show the valiance and vigor of the soldiers. It had a very strong effect that could shake people's hearts. When Yi Qian returned, the 3rd class was resting. Everyone was sitting under the sun, laughing so hard that their shoulders were shaking. The 2 girls, Su Wen and He Jing, were sitting far away, looking awkward and uncomfortable. It was as if they had encountered something embarrassing and were very uncomfortable. When they saw Yi Qian walking over, the boys in the class pursed their lips again, laughing so hard that they suffered internal injuries. "What's wrong?" Yi Qian, who didn't know what was going on, walked over to his roommate. "The boys are a little strange. What are they laughing about? What happened just now? The instructor isn't here either. Where did he go?" Su Wen covered her face and said in a muffled voice, "When we were practicing the marching drill, the instructor said a chant. The boys couldn't hold back their aura. The instructor asked them to laugh for 10 minutes before he came over. A hooligan-like chant came out of nowhere. Even a girl like me was embarrassed." The girl, He Jing, fanned her hands unnaturally, her face slowly becoming hot. "Luckily you weren't there at that time. Otherwise, you would have been embarrassed too." Yi Jian really didn't know that there was a chant for marching. The meaning of marching was to display a military posture. Everyone stood upright with their legs stretched out. Their feet touched the ground with a sonorous and powerful sound. They moved forward with a strong sense of rhythm. This was a very serious drill. Why would it make the boys laugh and the girls feel awkward? Although Su Wen's grandfather was a soldier, she grew up with her grandparents who taught. Although she had a straightforward personality, she still had the temperament of a little girl. She was too embarrassed to say it, so she pushed the girl. He Jing. Say it, say it. I really can't open my mouth. Some of the boys stood up and did the marching drill. Then, the boys who were sitting laughed until they beat the grass. They couldn't laugh loudly and felt uncomfortable holding it in, so they could only use their physical strength to vent. Yi Jian's eyes darkened slightly. These boys were probably going to be punished. The formation training ground had to be solemn and formal in order to show the might of the soldiers. For the instructor to leave for a while laughing and pounding the ground at this time was probably intentional. It's just a chant. You don't have to be embarrassed. What's the chant? It only tells you the trick to memorize the movements so that you can learn the key as soon as possible. Yi Jian smiled and enlightened the two girls. You have to differentiate between formation training and physical training. During physical training, you have to shout loudly and be high-spirited. But we can't do the formation training. He had to be serious. You've all seen the square formation of the National Day ceremony. It's neat and orderly. Their slogans are filled with murderous intent. Who's laughing? Who would laugh? No one would laugh. Only the mighty and majestic aura of our army can be felt when we walk out. The boys were still laughing, while the girls walked out of the awkward situation under the guidance of Yi Qian. Even their sitting postures were much more upright. Chapter 14:14. Su Wen's expression gradually became solemn, then she nodded and said seriously, "You're right. When I was 4 years old, I went to my dad's army. At that time, I happened to see the soldiers training in formation. I still remember it vividly. I was just walking over when suddenly there was an earth-shattering chant. I was so scared that I cried. 4 years old, I'm almost 20 years old now." The instructor had indeed been observing. When he saw that the two girls' expressions gradually relaxed due to Yi Qian's arrival, he put down the binoculars. Class 3's Yi Qian was indeed a good seedling. Our country's marching regulations were personally set by General Shao. In the 50s, the great leader proposed that the army should be unified in command, system, organization, and discipline. At that time, the head of the military training department, General Shao, immediately organized the relevant personnel to write 3 regulations: discipline, internal affairs, and formation. With the implementation of the 3 regulations, it provided a strong support for the construction of our army. In the 50s, it began to be used. Yi Qian talked about China's marching, the origin and development of China's formation. Later on, the military commission researched and used the infantry movement that Commander Liu personally set. Using the German marching as a template, it made changes based on the Soviet Union. It strengthened the arm swing, and at the same time adjusted the stride length to achieve the coordination of the 4 limbs. It was the marching and formation of our army. Don't underestimate our marching and formation training. These were all done after a long period of research and study by our ancestors. After a long period of research and constant adjustments, we finally have today's formation training and various regulations. Following her explanation, the two girls no longer had any awkwardness on their faces. Even the boys who were closer to the 3 of them didn't secretly laugh. The incantation was just a way for everyone to quickly grasp the key point. How could you just listen to its literal meaning? You had to understand it on a deeper level, dissect it, and understand it. I think I understand what you're trying to say. He Jing, who was quite perceptive, straightened her gaze. The formation represents the image of us soldiers. It is also the blood and sweat of the old leaders and elders. It is also the legacy of the army. We need to walk with respect and reverence. Yi Qian's smile deepened. That's right. There's also the formation training. The ultimate goal is to foster discipline and obedience among the soldiers. good military posture, strict military manners, strong style, strict discipline, majestic military prestige, and coordination of movements are all inseparable from formation training. The boys are laughing right now. I dare say that they haven't memorized the formation rules. Just wait, the feast is about to be served. Her voice was neither loud nor soft, but it was loud enough for the boys closest to her to hear. It was a hot day, and the temperature was around 37 degrees Celsius. The boys felt cold air rush up from the soles of their feet, and their heart palpitations rushed up to their heads. They shuddered violently. The rules and regulations of the formation included general principles, formation commands, formation actions, etc. There were a total of 9 chapters, 65 articles, and 5 appendices. It was quite a thick book. Before the cold shivers passed, a sharp whistle that made one's scalp numb sounded. The instructor's stern and cold voice sounded, "I'll give you 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3. He said 10 seconds, and it was only 10 seconds. Those boys who didn't realize that danger was coming didn't even have time to smile properly. The instructor's cold gaze swept past them like steel needles pricking their scalps painfully. Chapter 14-15. Just as Yi Qian had said, the boys' punishment was coming. When Yi Qian left with the 2 girls, he only saw the boys' white faces and trembling knees. The military academy was not a place where you could do whatever you wanted, nor was it a place where you could joke about discipline. Through strict formation training and formation life, it could cultivate a soldier's strict organization and discipline. It could cultivate a strict and decisive fighting style. It could cultivate a determined and fearless soldier's temperament. You still dare to laugh at such a significant training? Heh, do you think you're having it too easy? The boys' punishment continued for a week. After those boys with impulsive temperaments were taught a lesson, they underwent another transformation. By the end of September, the freshmen finally looked like soldiers in their straight military uniforms. Their self-restraint improved, their appearance improved. Dressed in their military uniforms, they all held their heads high and began to march in an orderly manner according to the instructor's command. Yi Qian, who had become the flag guard, stood on the flag-raising platform like a pine tree. His gaze was cold as he looked at every class that walked in the square. 1, 2, 3, march in unison. The orderly troops walked in a very rhythmic manner on the platform. With a salute, the future reserve officer of our army walked in front of the platform with a solemn expression under the scorching sun. His eyes were like sharp arrows as he walked in front of the platform with an imposing military aura. In the entire National University of Science and Technology, other than the military parade field, it was so quiet that not a single person could be seen. At the main entrance of the school, a sentry stopped a couple and said very seriously, "Our school is not receiving any parents right now. Please leave our school quickly. Please cooperate." "No, comrade, we really have an urgent matter. The child's grandmother is dying and wants to see the child. Comrade, can you please inform her? Her name is Yi Qian. She's a new student. If it's really not possible, can you inform the homeroom teacher?" Sun Dongqing's voice was full of emotion. Her expression seemed to be quite anxious. The sentry maintained a cold expression and did not allow any room for discussion. "Please leave our school immediately. Please cooperate." If they still did not cooperate, they could ask the soldiers to come out. "Comrade, why are you so inhumane? The child's grandmother is about to die. Why can't you be more reasonable? If a soldier can go home to attend a funeral, I don't believe that a cadet can't go home to attend a funeral." The sentry in front of the school gate was not armed with a gun. Sun Dongqing stood up and grabbed the sentry's wrist. "Do you have to make things difficult for people like this? You didn't let us in, and you didn't even inform the students. What kind of soldiers are you? Don't you have any manners?" The sentinel warned her 3 times in a row to loosen her grip, but to no avail. He then made his move, and in the blink of an eye, he easily pinned Sun Dongqing's hand behind her back. Yi Jifan was shocked and quickly said, I'm sorry, comrade. My wife was a little impatient. She didn't mean any harm. She definitely didn't mean any harm. Please take her away from our school immediately. The sentinel didn't probe further. He let go of Sun Dongqing, whose face was distorted from the pain, and waved his hand. A few more soldiers on duty walked out. Their expressions were so cold that Sun Dongqing shrank back to her husband's side. What could they do? They couldn't get in. If they wanted to find Yi Qian, they had to go through the sentinel. Yi Jifan had no choice but to put down his pride and ask politely, Then I'd like to ask, how can we contact the students inside? Tomorrow is National Day. I heard that cadets can leave school this afternoon. I don't know if that's true or not. Chapter 14:16. The gentle Yi Jifan had the authority of a government official, and he spoke boldly. The guard's attitude was not as cold as before. He replied, Our school is holding a celebration right now, and we won't be receiving any parents. As for the holiday arrangements, each class and each school is different, so we can't answer your question. Also, sir, if you don't leave now, the soldiers on duty will come and deal with you. In the car, Ying stared at the majestic gate of the National University of Science and Technology. The thick bricks, the cold colors, the majestic national emblem, and the sentry on duty. Yi Qian received all these and entered the military school known as the Military Hua University, but she had nothing at all. Her fingernails dug into her palms, and she didn't let go even when she felt the pain. She had to think of a way. She had to think of a way to defeat Yi Qian. She had to think of a way to defeat her. But what could she do? Now, in order for her to enter the military, her parents had to bring her here to apologize to Yi Qian, and ask her to forgive her mother for being disrespectful to Uncle General, that old thing. Even after he died, he was still causing trouble for her family. How hateful! What should we do? They won't let us in at all. How can we find her? Sun Dongqing hurriedly chased after Yi Jifan, who had turned back to the car. She was really anxious. For the sake of her daughter's future, how could she not be anxious? There's still no news from the Qin family, and there's no progress on your side. Old Yi Qian is the only path we can take. Yi Jifan, whose face had darkened, glanced at her coldly. What's the use of being anxious now? We can't even see her. He had purposely picked a national holiday, but he still couldn't find her. Why is it like this, damn girl? How did it come to this? In the past, I could hit and scold her whenever I wanted, but now I can't even find her. The difference was too big, and Sun Dongqing still couldn't accept it. I'm afraid you won't even know where she is in the future. Yi Jifan was a little irritated as he smoked a cigarette. He took a deep breath and looked at the gate of the National University of Science and Technology. His eyes were a little dark and unclear. He did not expect that things would come to this. Why did he still have to depend on Yi Qian? Ying didn't come out. She just watched. The unwillingness in her eyes turned into a gloomy darkness, making her look exceptionally cold. I'll ask them later. The sentinel said that they're holding a celebration. It's probably related to National Day. Yi Jifan finished the cigarette and adjusted his mood before saying, If you really see her later, give me. A sentry walked straight towards him. Yi Qian is currently participating in a celebration. After registering, you will enter the school together with the soldiers on duty. Please abide by the school's regulations when you enter the school grounds. You are not allowed to walk around or take photos. In short, he said a lot, and Sun Dongqing's expression changed again and again. She endured it and tried her best to keep her mouth shut. Yi Jifan thought that things would be difficult, but who knew that there would be such a big twist? After listening carefully, he said, We will definitely not cause any trouble for the school. We will definitely abide by the school's regulations. As long as she could get in, she would definitely cooperate. Otherwise, she would be chased out by Yi Qian on the spot. With her personality, she would definitely do it. After going through some procedures, Yi Zhifan finally brought Sun Dongqing and Yi Ying into the school grounds. The moment the family of three stepped onto the campus, they couldn't help but hold their breath. Yi Ying grabbed Yi Zhifan's arm tightly. She had an inexplicable sense of respect for this place. Chapter 14-17. This was a campus that Yi Ying had never understood or been familiar with. Everywhere she looked, there was a sense of unfamiliarity that made her feel like she was suffocating. Sun Dongqing's shoulders shrunk back a little. She did not see anyone on the campus. It was so solemn that it made her tremble in fear. Her eyelids were twitching, and she was extremely panicked. "Old Yi, why don't we wait outside?" After walking for about 500 meters, Sun Dongqing suddenly said anxiously, "This place makes me feel uneasy. I feel like something big is going to happen." The further they walked, the faster her heart beat. Sun Dongqing had not met Yi Qian for the first time, and she was already feeling scared. Yi Ying bit her lower lip. She was also panicking, but to ask her to go back. Impossible. How could she go back? If Yi Qian knew about this, he would laugh her to death. Yi Ying cleared her throat. In order to show her imposing manner, she purposely straightened her back and said coldly, "Mom, follow me closely." She thought she was imposing, but her voice was dry, revealing a sense of cowardice. Yi Ying heard her own dry voice, and her face stiffened even more. She might as well not open her mouth. The soldier on duty walking in front did not communicate with the students' parents. Only when they reached a fork in the road did he remind them coldly, "This way." Yi Zhifan's cold eyes were filled with warning. He turned around and glanced at the mother and daughter. "Watch your step. Don't fall." It sounded like he was concerned, but it was actually a warning. The campus was very big, and it would take some time to reach the military parade field from the school gate. After passing through 2 empty teaching buildings and walking through a long corridor, suddenly, a deafening sound that seemed to be able to shatter the air came from the front. Yi Ying was so shocked that she let out an "ah," as she was not prepared for this. Then, she immediately covered her mouth. Her face was filled with deep regret. The soldier on duty did not look back, nor did he explain anything. He connected to the walkie-talkie and contacted the soldier on duty inside. "I am the soldier on duty at Post 11. The students' parents are here. The students' parents are here. Please respond if you hear me." There was a buzzing sound from the walkie-talkie, and then someone replied, "Please bring them to the audience. Please bring them to the audience." "Got it, got it." The soldier on duty cut off the connection and turned to Yi Zhifan's family of 3, saying, "The entire school is now holding a military parade. When you arrive at the audience seats, please sit properly. Do not stand up or walk around casually. At the same time, cooperate with the routine inspection of the soldiers on duty." Even Yi Zhifan, as an official, couldn't help but clench his fists when he heard the slogans. His attitude was gentle as he said, "We will follow the school's arrangements. We will not make our own decisions." Although he was a provincial-level cadre, once he entered the military academy and entered the army, it would be the same. It was only right for him to lower his attitude. When Sun Dongqing and Yi Ying saw that even the backbone of the family did not put on airs, they naturally did not dare to put on airs. They even fearfully followed the soldiers in. They walked valiantly in unison, with a cold and imposing manner. When they were in formation, their orderly and mighty steps, their sonorous and powerful voices filled the vast field with the figures of future reserve officers of our army. Although it was not as grand as the National Day Parade, it was enough to shake people's hearts. Yi Ying was already dumbfounded. This was the military academy that Yi Qian had entered. This was the place where Yi Qian would live for 4 years. This was Yi Qian's life. Chapter 14:18. Holy, dignified, mighty, piercingly cold. It made her feel fear and reverence, and it made her more and more panicked. How did this happen? How did this happen? She was clearly the most outstanding one, and Yi Qian was clearly the worst. She should be the one with a bright future. How did she end up like this? How did she end up like this? She didn't know which class the students from, but the white gloves on their hands flashed across Yi Ying's dazed eyes like a ray of light, so piercing that she couldn't help but close her eyes. Her entire aura seemed to be covered in dust, cold, gloomy, and without a trace of vitality. Ying, hurry up and leave. Sun Dongqing saw that her daughter didn't move and couldn't help but urge her softly. They're all looking at you. Hurry up and leave. Ying opened her eyes, and her eyeballs moved slightly. She asked in a weak voice, Mom, how am I worse than her? I'm clearly better than her. How did I end up like this? What nonsense are you talking about? Sun Dongqing, who always thought that her precious daughter was the best, said coldly, How are you worse? You're better than that wretched girl. What's so good about this place? See, all the officials are standing at the top? Yi Qian is nothing. He's just a military school student. How many military school students are there? It's no big deal even if she got in. Sun Dongqing always comforted herself, and even found excuses for Yi Ying to escape. She thought that she was doing it for Yi Ying's good, but in fact, every time Yi Ying had the slightest thought of self-reflection, Sun Dongqing would immediately jump out and find excuses for Yi Ying. Over time, Yi Ying also became like her. She developed a habit of not recognizing reality and finding excuses to escape reality. She always thought that she was right and everyone else was wrong. Everyone else was useless, and she was the only one who had a bright future. Sun Dongqing, who once again extinguished Yi Ying's self-reflection, didn't know how wrong she was. She continued to comfort her. Let her enjoy her glory now. When you enter the capital government regiment and talk to the high-ranking officials every day, Ying, those days will be glorious. She might even find a high-ranking official's son, or find a young high-ranking official to be her boyfriend. Look, how great is that? How promising. So what if that wretched girl has the support of that old thing? Who would help her for so long? Sun Dongqing, who had forgotten about the pain after her wounds healed, returned to her old ways and dared to belittle Yi Qian again. Ying, you have to remember this for my mother. You will always be stronger than that wretched girl. No matter what, you still have your parents' support, but she has nothing. That's right, no matter what, she still had her parents' support. So what if Yi Qian was doing well now? She was just a normal cadet from a military academy. She was just standing here basking in the sun. Who would notice her? Every time there was a slogan, the mother and daughter, who couldn't help but shake their shoulders, whispered to each other. Their eyes drifted to the parade field, and then quickly retracted, with caution and fear that they themselves didn't realize. Yi Jifan's attention was all on the parade field. He didn't turn around to look, nor did he hear what the mother and daughter were saying. If he had heard, he probably wouldn't have needed Yi Qian to come out. He would have directly pulled the mother and daughter, who only knew how to comfort themselves and couldn't recognize reality, away. There were only teachers in their military uniforms in the audience. When Yi Jifan sat down, he couldn't help but tug at his shirt to show respect to the square formation that was walking over. Chapter 14:19. The bright red national flag fluttered in the wind on the parade stage. The flag-bearers stood at attention beside the flagpole, while two flag-bearers stood guard with spears in their hands. After instructing his wife and daughter to sit on either side of him, Yi Jifan looked around. He looked at the high-spirited young silhouettes and then looked at his daughter beside him. He had never felt that his family was worse than others. He sighed softly and lectured Yi Ying. 1 minute on the stage is 10 years of hard work off the stage. Yi Ying, you have to learn from them. Dad, when I get into the military, I won't embarrass you. Yi Ying's jaw tightened. She tried to hide her uneasiness with an expressionless face, but it was too obvious. Instead, she appeared stiff and restrained. Yi Jifan saw this and sighed even more heavily in his heart. She did not reflect on her own shortcomings at all. Not only did she bite off more than she could chew, she also liked. She liked to daydream. Ying, whether you get into the military or not is another matter. Dad hopes that you can learn from their spirit. No matter how bad she was still his daughter. He had to educate her and not give up just like that. Yi Jifan patiently lectured. You used to love saying that Yi Qian was inferior to you in every aspect. Look at them now. Look at the figures below. Look at the aura they exude. Looking at them is like looking at Yi Qian. Ying, don't you realize the difference between you and Yi Qian? Don't you realize that you can't compare to Yi Qian? Yi Ying's face suddenly turned pale. She subconsciously clenched her fist. Dad can tell you very clearly now. You are indeed inferior to Yi Qian. You used to be outstanding, but that is all in the past. People have to look forward. You are still stuck in the same place. You think you are better than Yi Qian. In fact, Yi Qian has long surpassed you. Lecturing on the spot was more impactful than lecturing on the fact. Facing the rows of military academy students standing straight like pine trees, Ying felt her breathing getting heavier with each breath. It was as if her whole body was entangled in a spider web. The more she struggled, the less she could break free. Sun Dongqing was furious. She still had to take care of the people around her. She gritted her teeth and defended her daughter. Yi Jifan, how can you be a father? Look at how scared Ying is. Don't compare Yi Qian to Ying. In my heart, she's nothing. You don't even deserve to carry Ying's shoes. Every time he wanted to preach, Sun Dongqing would always be the first to jump out to refute him. Yi Jifan was burning with anger. He lowered his voice and shouted, If you have the guts, get Yi Qian here later. Do you dare to let her carry Ying's shoes? Sun Dongqing was speechless. How would she dare? He didn't even dare to say it to his face. Yi Jifan sneered. Do you see that, Ying? This is what your mother is capable of. The ability to rely on his mouth. If you learn all of your mother's skills, 10 Yi Qian can't even compare to 1 Ying. These words were so harsh that the last bit of color drained from Yi Ying's face. After a while, she said softly, Dad, Mom, stop arguing. We're here to look for Yi Qian today, not to argue. 10 Yi Yings couldn't even compare to 1 Yi Qian. Was she that bad? She didn't believe it. She couldn't accept it. She couldn't accept it. How could she, Ying, be worse than Yi Qian? How could she be worse than her? She stared straight ahead. When her gaze inadvertently swept across the flag-raising stage, Ying suddenly stood up. She saw a familiar figure. A figure that she wanted to curse even in her dreams. A figure that tormented her day and night. A figure that wanted to eat her flesh and gnaw on her bones. Chapter 1420. Ying, sit down. She stood up abruptly. Yi Jifan, whose expression had darkened, reached out quickly and grabbed her wrist. Do you still want to embarrass yourself? Sit down. Fortunately, they were sitting in the back row. The teachers in front were all watching the parade seriously and did not pay attention to the back. Otherwise, Ying would have received countless disapproving looks when she stood up so abruptly. The soldier on duty saw that the parent who stood up quickly sat down again. He took 2 steps forward and returned to his original position. His gaze lingered on Ying for a few seconds before leaving. Ying, who was forcefully pulled back by Yi Jifan, fell back into her seat. Her whole body trembled uncontrollably. Even her teeth were chattering. Dad, I saw Yi Qian. I saw Yi Qian. I saw Yi Qian. She was wearing a straight military uniform, holding a gun and standing at the highest point. It was as if she was looking down on her and mocking her. She was standing so high and holding a gun. She was even holding a gun. Mom said that there were so many military academy students who would recognize her. Wrong, wrong, all wrong. Who didn't see her? Everyone saw her. She was standing so high, everyone would see her. All the teachers and students in the school would see her. What was she doing here? Was she here to see how impressive she was? Was she here to see how she made a name for herself in school? Was she here to be looked down on and mocked? Yi Ying's unwillingness turned into anger. She was so angry that her whole body trembled even more. Sun Dongqing noticed Yi Ying's strange behavior. She grabbed her daughter's trembling shoulders and scared her into asking, "Ying, what's wrong? Did you get a heat stroke? Why are you trembling?" "Mom, I saw Yi Qian. She was standing so high up." "Mom, I saw Yi Qian." Yi Ying grabbed the corner of Sun Dongqing's shirt and said angrily, "She was in front, standing on the flag stand." "Mom, everyone saw her." "You're wrong, you're wrong. Everyone saw her." There were so many military academy students. She was the only one standing so high up, receiving everyone's attention. What about her? What about her? There was nothing. There was nothing. When Sun Dongqing heard this, she immediately raised her head and looked in the direction of the flag stand. When her gaze landed on the gun in Yi Qian's hand, her body instantly froze. She was standing so high up, and she was holding a gun in her hand. No wonder her daughter was afraid. Even she was afraid. "Old Yi, let's go, let's go," Sun Dongqing said with difficulty. She held Yi Ying's shoulders tightly, and her lips were trembling. "We came to the wrong place, we came to the wrong place. Before she sees us, old Yi, let's go, let's go." Ying is scared. Look, Ying is so scared that her whole body is trembling. Compared to his wife, Yi Zhifan knew his daughter better. Ask her if she's trembling in fear or anger. Sit tight. You're not allowed to leave until you see Yi Qian. Dad, if she really goes on like this, she can easily take back the jade pendant on my neck. His eyes were as sharp as needles as he stared at Yi Ying, who was standing on the flag stand. He gritted his teeth and said, "We can't let her go anymore. Dad, we must find a way." "Take back the jade pendant?" Yi Zhifan chuckled. "The jade pendant is in my hands. You don't have to worry. As for whether we can let Yi Qian go, Yi Ying, oh Yi Ying, if you weren't my daughter, I really wouldn't care about you." Chapter 14:21. How could he not know what his daughter was thinking? It seemed like she was so angry that she even dared to threaten him. No wonder she was Yi Zhifan's daughter. She was ruthless and did not lack courage. But if she was only ruthless but not capable, that would not do either. Yi Ying, whose thoughts were exposed, bit her lower lip. So he still knew that she was his daughter. Then why was he being so aggressive towards her? Yi Zhifan ignored her grievances. There was even a trace of impatience in his cold voice. "If you still refuse to face reality, Yi Ying, you will never be able to stop Yi Qian from moving forward. If you don't learn to lower your head, you will always be able to look up at Yi Qian. Yi Ying, do you still think you have the right to raise your head in front of Yi Qian? Do you still have the right to show off in front of her? Do you?" Did she? No, she did not. She had nothing. If she had nothing, what right did she have to raise her head in front of Yi Qian? What right did she have to show off in front of him? Yi Ying, whose face was as white as a sheet, did not know how much time had passed before she gently shook her head. Her entire body seemed to collapse as she said, "No, I have nothing. And she has everything that I can't get." "Since you don't have anything, then keep your head down today. Don't just talk and do nothing," Yi Zhifan said coldly, as if he did not believe a single word that Yi Ying said. He only hated that he did not bring her along when he was working in the town government. She had developed a blind and arrogant personality like Sun Dongqing. Yi Qian had already gone so far, but the daughter he had always thought was outstanding was still in the same place. If he did not let her see the truth, she would only continue to think that she was so powerful. He had reminded her countless times to wake up and not to underestimate Yi Qian. She had to realize that she was not as good as Yi Qian. In the end, it only had a slight effect at the time, and it was the same after that. Thinking of this, Yi Zhifan gloomily stared at his wife. She had contributed greatly to his daughter's current state. Sun Dongqing did not say anything. She did not know what to say. She had always thought that her daughter was better than Yi Qian, but what was the truth? The truth was right in front of her eyes. Her daughter had to use her connections to enter the army. As for Yi Qian, he was already holding a gun. Facing her father's accusation, Ying pursed her lips even tighter. Lowering her head to Yi Qian. How could she do it? How could she do it? She clenched her fists even tighter and her gaze became even more sinister. She couldn't get over the hurdle in her heart. She couldn't accept lowering her head to someone who she thought was inferior to her. Seeing this, Yi Zhifan sneered. He had spent so much effort to nurture him, only to receive such an outcome. He was unwilling to accept this. Now, if he wanted his daughter to stand up again, he could only rely on Yi Qian. He wanted to use her to make his daughter see the truth and stop being so arrogant. Lamentable, lamentable, when it came to educating his daughter, he failed too thoroughly. For a moment, the atmosphere between the father and daughter was so tense that it was almost at daggers drawn. Sun Dongqing was so nervous that she didn't know what to do. Seeing that her daughter was sweating profusely under the sun, her heart ached so much that she took out an umbrella from her handbag. Ying, hold the umbrella and watch. It's too hot. Be careful not to get sunburned. It was indeed very hot. Ying instinctively reached out to take the umbrella. Yi Zhifan's face darkened as sweat dripped down his back. We've been here for more than 10 minutes, and Yi Qian has been in this position without moving. She's standing, but you're still sitting. Hearing this, Ying retracted her hand as if she had been electrocuted. Chapter 14:22. Time passed bit by bit. From 8:15 to 11:30, Yi Jian and the two seniors on the flag-raising platform had been standing motionless with imitation guns that were as heavy as the Type 95 rifle. They had maintained the most standard military posture, standing tall and straight like pine trees with a piercingly cold aura. Yi Zhifan had been paying attention to Yi Qian the entire time. When the military parade ended and the flag-bearers were about to walk down the flag-raising platform, he couldn't help but tighten his grip. If something were to happen to Yi Qian at this time, even Uncle Jen wouldn't be able to save her. Step by step, she walked down the steps gracefully. Then, step by step, she strode across the platform with her head held high. Everyone's attention was on her. All eyes were on her. Yi Zhifan clenched his fists even tighter. Even if there was the slightest mistake, such as her steps not being in sync with the other two flag-bearers, or her knees being weak, or fainting from heatstroke, even if there was the slightest mistake, it would be fine. Unfortunately, Yi Zhifan only saw Yi Qian walking valiantly with her rifle and standing at the front of the entire school, listening to the school's highest leader's closing speech. There was no disrespect, no mistake, only the awe-inspiring presence of a soldier. Yi Zhifan couldn't help but close his eyes. Ying, you're too far behind, too far behind. The entire military parade ended smoothly. Applause followed. The teachers in the audience also clapped. Very good. Every team walked out with the awe-inspiring presence of an army, especially the freshmen. It only took 2 months for them to achieve such result. Very good. The freshman flag-bearers are not bad. She stood for more than 3 hours, and her movements were still perfect. For a girl to be able to do this, she's very good. Indeed, the students recruited this year are all good, especially that girl. She deserves praise. Yi Qian, a girl from Class 3. I'm afraid we'll hear her name often in the future. Amidst the applause, the teacher's conversation could be heard. Sun Dongqing didn't know how many times she rolled her eyes. Yi Qian, Yi Qian, Yi Qian, turn around and look behind you. Her precious daughter, Yi Ying, was better than her. From what you've seen and heard, who would say that Yi Qian is inferior to you? Who said that you were better than Yi Qian? Yi Ying, if you continue to be so stubborn, your life will be ruined by your mother. Before the applause ended, Yi Zhifan gave Yi Ying one last heavy blow. All she saw was Yi Qian's excellence, and all she heard was praise for Yi Qian. She thought that she was better than Yi Jian, but that was just her own opinion. No one would really think that she was better than Yi Jian, and that she was really better than Yi Jian. Everything was just her own opinion. Tears gushed out like a broken dam. She couldn't accept this. She couldn't accept that Yi Qian had surpassed her. She couldn't accept that she had been surpassed just like that. Dad, I will apologize to Yi Qian and learn from her. Only when I'm strong can I defeat her and take revenge on her for the pain she once inflicted on me. Under the scorching sun, Yi Ying's eyes were filled with tears, but there was a sinister gloom in the depths of her eyes. I will definitely repay her for all the humiliation I've suffered. Yi Ying wouldn't admit defeat, and neither would Yi Qian. The grudges from the previous life, and the grudges in this life, one day they would be settled one by one. All the classes left the stage one by one. Yi Qian and another flag-bearer senior returned the Type 95 replica rifle. When they came out, Yi Qian couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Chapter 1423. If he wasn't mistaken, the three people standing in front of him, they really found their way to the school. They were quite capable. Yi Qian, come here. The homeroom teacher, whom he had only met 4 times, waved him over. Your family is here. Let's go to the teacher's office for a chat. Go to the teacher's office for a chat? Before Yi Qian could reply, Yi Zhifan immediately said, No, teacher. We'll find a place to talk. He was able to meet Yi Qian because the school didn't know about his relationship with Yi Qian. If he went to the teacher's office for a chat and Yi Qian told him about the original situation, he would have come for nothing again. Teacher, you must think that he's my uncle. Actually, he's not. This Mr. Yi tampered with my entrance exams many times. It was written on my resume that I took a year off from high school. It was all because of this Mr. Yi. Yi Qian didn't want to drag it out. He didn't want to be involved with Yi Zhifan's family for the next 4 years. During the college entrance exams, he tried to tamper with my registration again and again, trying to stop me from getting into university. Teacher, I really don't have anything to talk about with this Mr. Yi. Not giving her a chance to speak? Yi Zhifan, can you stop him? She said it so calmly and didn't give Yi Zhifan a chance to interrupt. When the teacher of class 3 heard this, his expression immediately turned cold. He glanced at Yi Zhifan with a threatening gaze and said to Yi Qian, Come to the teacher's office. Let's go to the teacher's office together. As a teacher, he naturally believed what his students said. If they really went to the teacher's office, then everything would be in vain. Yi Ying's face flushed red. She suddenly stood up. Sis, I'm here to apologize to you. I was too immature in the past and did many things that made you sad. Her apology was stiff at the beginning, but the more she spoke, the more fluent she became. As she spoke, she even squeezed out a few tears. Sis, I'm sorry. I apologize to you. Please forgive my immaturity in the past. I know I've done too many wrong things, and I don't dare to ask you to forgive me in a short time. Sister, please give me a chance. I'll definitely change. The sun did not rise from the west, so Yi Ying could not really apologize to her. However, he did not expect her to pretend to apologize and even shed a few drops of tears. Who didn't know how to act? Yi Qian looked as if he had been frightened by something. He quickly hid behind his teacher and pursed his lips tightly without saying a word. That's right, she would not say a word. She wanted to see how long Yi Ying could lower her head. The homeroom teacher of the National Science and Technology University of Science and Technology was not so easily fooled. He stood in front of Yi Qian and acted like a protector. He looked coldly at the incoherent family of three. Just now, you said that Yi Qian's grandmother was seriously ill and needed Yi Qian to go home. Now, all of a sudden, he stood up and apologized. Sir, what kind of place do you think our school is? Teacher, you can call my family and find out more about my situation, Yi Qian said in a low voice. His voice was so heavy that it seemed to be weighed down by a rock. He was full of helplessness. I don't have a grandmother either. When I was young, I almost died at the hands of this so-called grandmother. Teacher, I don't want to see them. Ying lowered her head and closed her eyes tightly. She took a deep breath and clenched her fist. Her voice choked again. Sis, I'm here to apologize sincerely. Please forgive me. Can you not reject me? I regret it. I really regret it. I regret it. I regret underestimating you. I regret trusting myself too much. Chapter 14:24. In the face of Yi Ying's apology, Yi Qian only had one feeling: she had ulterior motives. However, after 3 days, she had a whole new level of respect for her. She could actually lower her head. The Yi Ying of the past, when had she ever lowered her head for anyone in her previous life? Never, never? Then, what exactly happened to make Yi Ying lower her head? It was worth thinking about. Yi Qian's eyes narrowed slightly. Yi Ying changed too quickly, and Sun Dongqing, who had always been protective of her daughter, remained silent. She stood at the side without saying a word. It was too abnormal. Her lips curled slightly, revealing a faint smile. You don't have to apologize to me. It's not about whether I forgive you or not. It's about how you feel in your heart. If you really think that you've done too many wrong things, you don't have to beg others to forgive you. You don't have to go to others and say things that make things difficult for them. Yi Ying, you're just forcing me to forgive you. Sun Dongqing watched as her daughter lowered herself to the point of humility. She felt very uncomfortable. She opened her mouth, closed it, and held it in. Stupid girl, don't be too smug. Yi Qian didn't even look at Yi Zhifan and Yi Ying. She only looked at Sun Dongqing's expression. She saw her face darken for a moment, then turn ruthless for a moment. She found it even more funny. She came over to ask her to forgive Yi Ying. She even forgave Yi Ying in front of her homeroom teacher. She had it all planned out. Next, would Yi Zhifan immediately ask for the homeroom teacher's contact in the name of showing concern for his niece Yi Qian's school life? Then he could call the homeroom teacher and mention Yi Ying at the same time? Yi Zhifan had always been good at this kind of thing. Yi Ying, whose eyes were red, seemed even more wronged and upset. She lowered her head and sobbed, Sister, I didn't force you. I just wanted to ask for your forgiveness. Why would I force you? I just wanted to ask for your forgiveness. This time, Yi Ying really lowered herself. She lowered her head, put down her pride, and lowered her pride. Yi Zhifan, who saw this, felt very gratified. Finally, he could face his enemies head-on. He understood that lowering his head for a moment was only for the sake of his future rise. Faced with Yi Yingtai's unusual behavior, Yi Qian became even more cautious. Yi Qian, who was thinking quickly, did not speak immediately. He left Yi Ying to the side. Sun Dongqing was already holding back her anger. When she saw that her precious daughter had been left to the side, she raised her head and glared fiercely at Yi Qian. This glare was caught by Yi Qian, who happened to be sizing her up. Then, Yi Qian felt that things were finally back to normal. Sun Dongqing's heart was flustered. She vaguely felt that, she was afraid that her glare just now had ruined everything. She immediately pretended to wipe away her tears and sighed, Little girl, Auntie is also at fault. I said a lot of things that I shouldn't have said. You're a magnanimous person, so please forgive Auntie this time. She was afraid that Yi Qian didn't know what she said, so she deliberately reminded him, "Last time when you came back to the village, Auntie said something that I shouldn't have. Please don't take it to heart. Auntie really didn't do it on purpose," she explained quickly and anxiously, her eyes staring straight at Yi Qian. Although she apologized, she did not know how to hide the fierceness in her eyes. Not only did Yi Qian see it clearly, but so did Yi Qian's teacher. Thanks to her words, Yi Qian understood that things were not as simple as they seemed. Chapter 1425. She purposely brought up what happened last time. She was so anxious and worried. What was she worried about? Why did it feel like Yi Ying's apology was not the most important thing, but Sun Dongqing's? Even though Yi Qian was a meticulous person, he still could not figure out what their family was planning. The teacher of Class 3 did not immediately intervene. He still needed to understand the situation. Moreover, Yi Qian's reaction was very calm, so he did not need to rush to intervene. Yi Zhifan saw that his wife had finally lowered her head and apologized for that incident. He breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. Forcing Yi Ying to apologize first had some effect. This was the right move. Yi Qian would not forgive his daughter easily. He would definitely make things difficult for her. His wife, Sun Dongqing, had always been protective and could not bear for her daughter to be wronged. For her daughter's sake, she would also force herself to apologize to Yi Qian. Yi Zhifan saw that his wife was still able to say, "You are a magnanimous person, forgive your aunt this once." He was so satisfied that there was a trace of a smile in his eyes. Although his wife was a little stupid, as long as it concerned his daughter, Yi Qian, her brain was still quite flexible. She knew what to say to force Yi Qian. "Yi Jian, your teacher is standing right next to you. How are you going to answer her?" "Yi Jian, your teacher is standing right next to you. Answer, forgive." That was what he wanted. Yi Qian had a good point. He was not calculative. If he forgave his wife over this incident, then he would really forgive her. Then he could finally answer to Commander Liu and Political Commissar Yin. Answer, not forgive. It was fine as long as the teacher knew their family's attitude. Moreover, if a junior did not forgive an elder's apology, wouldn't that make them seem narrow-minded? It was not a good thing for a student to be narrow-minded. The teacher would have some opinions in his heart. In short, it did not matter if Yi Qian forgave his wife or not. He would get the result he wanted. The scheming Yi Zhifan was only waiting for Yi Qian to speak. He stared at him with a cold, calculating glint in his eyes. Yi Qian shifted his focus to Yi Zhifan. He was the backbone of the family. It was definitely Yi Zhifan's idea to come to the school, and not Sun Dongqing's. She would never have thought of it. So what was Yi Zhifan planning? Yi Ying apologized, Sun Dongqing apologized, but Yi Zhifan didn't say anything. Yi Qian replayed Sun Dongqing's words in his mind, and after a while, a fierce look flashed across his eyes. "Your Excellency is magnanimous. Forgive Auntie this once. Don't take it to heart. Auntie really didn't do it on purpose." Yi Ying apologized to him. If she didn't forgive her, she could have done it in front of a child. An elder apologizing to a junior and saying such things, as a junior, how could he not forgive her? Her teacher didn't understand the actual situation. He didn't know how hypocritical Yi Zhifan's family was. He also didn't know what Sun Dongqing had done wrong. If her teacher saw that he didn't forgive her, how would he feel? Thinking of this, Yi Qian clenched his fist. What a scheming and astute Yi Zhifan. In order to make her university life miserable, he wanted the teacher to have a bad impression of her. He schemed to this extent. "Yi Zhifan, oh Yi Zhifan, you really put in a lot of effort." Yi Qian, who had seen through a few things, pursed his lips and lowered his eyes. His long and thick eyelashes covered the mockery in his eyes. Chapter 1426. Yi Ying's apology was fake, but Sun Dongqing's apology was real. The truth and the lies mixed together, and in the end, she became a petty person who refused to forgive her elders. However, Yi Jifan, are you so confident that you can ruin her image in the eyes of the teachers? Yi Qian's eyes became even colder. No wonder Yi Ying was so confident, arrogant, and conceited. Yi Jifan played a part in it. Yi Jifan misunderstood. From his perspective, Yi Qian's expression was one of unwillingness to back down. Yi Qian's tightly pursed lips revealed a hint of stubbornness. Seeing this, Yi Qian's eyes smiled. He gave Yi Ying a look, indicating that his daughter should continue to lower herself so that Yi Qian's narrow-mindedness could be seen. A few seconds later, Yi Ying's eyes filled with tears. Her lips trembled as she asked softly, "Sister, what can I do to gain your forgiveness? Can you tell me? I really regret it. Please, give me a chance." All she wanted now was a chance to gain Yi Qian's forgiveness. A chance to enter Yi Qian's life and enter the sights of the military officers. As long as Yi Qian forgave her, she would have a chance to surpass Yi Qian. "Jian girl, look, your sister already knows her mistake. Just forgive her. Your aunt also knows her mistake. Forgive her this once. After all, we're family. We'll see each other all the time. There's no need to make our relationship too tense." Yi Jifan sighed deeply. His voice was filled with helplessness and melancholy. "Uncle doesn't feel good about it. Our family has caused a ruckus in this place. We've become a joke in our village." Yi Qian, whose eyes were filled with mockery, looked up indifferently. He first glanced at Yi Jifan, who was pretending to be sad, and then at Sun Dongqing. Seeing her face darken for a moment, then turn ruthless for a moment, he found it increasingly funny. He came over to ask her to forgive Yi Ying. Moreover, he wanted her to forgive Yi Ying in front of her homeroom teacher. This was a good plan. If she didn't forgive Yi Ying and Sun Dongqing, she would be considered petty and narrow-minded. How could he forgive Yi Ying and Sun Dongqing? She, Yi Qian, was not that great. So, Yi Jifan also knew that he was setting a trap for him. Next, would Yi Jifan immediately ask for the form teacher's contact information in the name of caring about his niece, Yi Jian's school life? In the future, if he had nothing to do, he could call the form teacher and say bad things about himself, and also mention Yi Ying's good points. Yi Jifan would definitely mention Yi Ying and do everything possible to ruin his image in front of the teacher. How could Yi Jifan let go of the opportunity to elevate Yi Ying and belittle her? Yi Jifan had always been good at this kind of thing. Since he had to bring up the past, he might as well bring it up properly. Yi Qian's lips curved as he looked at Yi Jifan, who was pretending to be sad, and said calmly, "I'm still young. I'm as immature as your daughter. Mr. Yi, why don't you ask your wife to tell me what happened that day again? Let my school judge whether or not we can forgive your family of 3. How about that?" She actually wanted to spread the news to the whole school. Sun Dongqing's and Yi Ying's expressions changed drastically. They didn't even have time to hide the panic that surged out from their faces. Sun Dongqing, who couldn't control her emotions, cried out involuntarily, "Old Yi." The rest of her words were forcefully swallowed by Yi Ying's tight grip on her arm. Her eyelids twitched even more violently. "This is bad. This is really bad." Chapter 14:27. Who would have thought that the wretched girl would do something like this, leaving them with no way out? Yi Jifan did not expect this either, and his back broke out in cold sweat. His face twitched violently, and he immediately said to the teacher, "The misunderstanding between the two kids is quite big. Teacher, can we talk in private? I'm afraid that if I speak, it will cause unnecessary misunderstandings." After listening for so long, the teacher of Class 3 smiled and politely declined, "We need to understand Yi Qian's family situation again. I'm sorry, but it's mealtime now. The military academy has a rule that if you miss the mealtime, you will not be served alone. Yi Qian still has training in the afternoon, and needs a certain amount of stamina. The teacher of Class 3 was in active service, a company commander. His tone was not as gentle as the typical civilian teachers, but was cold and intimidating. After he finished speaking, he smiled at Yi Qian and said, "Go to the cafeteria. After you eat, come to my office. I need to understand your family situation in private." There was a student with potential in the class who did not even need to participate in military training, and who still had outstanding stamina, so she should be nurtured with priority. Since she had come to the academy had the obligation to protect her and help her block out any harmful element. "Go quickly, leave this to the academy." Before he could finish the word deal, the broadcast system announced, "Year 1 Class 3 Commanding Freshman Yi Qian, please head to the dean's office." The teacher of Class 3 did not say anything else, and let Yi Qian jog over. Things were just so coincidental. Yi Qian did not stay and turned to leave. Yi Zhifan felt himself heave a sigh of relief. If she really wanted to spread this matter to the whole school, his position as an officer might really come to an end. He thought that he could force her to submit today, but who knew that he almost caused a disaster? Then, Yi Zhifan could not help but wonder if Ying would be as decisive as Yi Qian if she encountered this kind of situation. Probably not. Ying was someone who would weaken when faced with a strong opponent. She would not be as bold as Yi Qian. Not only did Yi Zhifan let out a sigh of relief, but Sun Dongqing and Ying also felt the same way. Earlier, they had wanted Yi Qian to stay, but now they wished that she would never come back. "Teacher, can we go to the office to talk? We mainly want to talk to the school about Yi Qian. This child, to my family, sigh." Unfinished words always seemed so helpless. Even Yi Zhifan's voice was so bitter that he could squeeze out bitter bile. The teacher of Class 3 raised his hand and looked at the time. After pondering for a while, he said, "I'm sorry, I can't meet the parents of the students today. I'll ask the soldiers on duty to send the 3 of you away." "I'm sorry, the military academy usually doesn't accept non-student parents." Since he had already said so, he definitely wouldn't allow Yi Zhifan's family of 3 to stay any longer. After Yi Qian was led by a senior to the dean's office, Yi Zhifan's family of 3 was also invited out of the campus. Scared me to death, scared me to death. Once they were out, Sun Dongqing's heart was still beating with fear. She kept patting her chest. Thank goodness we were called away. Otherwise, she really would have spread the news to the whole school. Ying raised her head and looked at the high school gate, which was as tall as a city wall. For a moment, she was stunned. "Get in the car first." Yi Zhifan's face was terrifyingly dark. He had underestimated Yi Qian again and again. He had clearly planned everything out, but in the end, she always foiled his plans and forced him into a corner. He could not delay any longer. He had to force Sun Yaozu to make his move as soon as possible. The 7-day National Day holiday, he had to find a way to deal with it himself. Chapter 1428. Dad, Yi Qian's wings have already hardened. After some time in the car, Ying finally spoke. "She's not someone I can deal with right now. If you don't want to see her grow stronger, you need to do something." Yi Zhifan gripped the steering wheel tightly and looked at his daughter. His eyes were cold and ruthless. He heartlessly rejected his daughter's suggestion. "If you don't want to see her grow stronger, Ying, you need to work hard. Whether or not I'll do anything to Yi Qian is the adult's business. It has nothing to do with you. Also, you did the right thing today. Dad is very pleased. Murder and arson. How could he let his daughter, who was still in her prime and had a bright future, know about these illegal things? He wouldn't even get involved himself. He would only borrow someone else's hand to see if he could solve the problem in his heart. Was he pleased?" Ying lowered her head and looked at her palms. Her delicate palms were scarred and stained with blood. Apologizing to Yi Jian had exhausted all of her courage and shattered all of her pride. However, the other party didn't care about her apology at all. He didn't even look her in the eye. Her pride and self-esteem were ruthlessly stepped on. If she used her pride and self-esteem to make her father feel pleased, Yi Ying's slender fingers tightened slightly. She expressionlessly tugged at the corner of her mouth. "Dad, as long as you're happy. As long as you're happy." Who asked her to rely on you now? The car gradually sped up. When the green light turned green, Yi Jifan, with his jaw tense, stepped on the accelerator and left the University of Science and Technology of China with his unwilling wife and daughter. Inside the University of Science and Technology of China, Yi Qian heard the sound of "come in." Yi Qian pushed open the anti-theft door of the office. She looked up slightly and saw the handsome face she was most familiar with. She saw him in casual clothes the day before the holidays. Could it be that he specially rushed over to spend National Day with her? Impossible. How could he have so much time to spend with her? Most likely, he was here for official business. The dean was a 55-year-old lieutenant general with the rank of deputy major. This meant that he was a dean with real power, unlike the teachers of Class 3 who were only active soldiers in the military academy. In the military academy there were 3 types of teachers: active duty, civilian, and employed. Teachers are active military personnel. They start from the position of deputy company commander and can reach the position of deputy division commander. Their military rank can be as high as senior colonel. On the other hand, civil service teachers started from level 12. The hired teachers would be regarded as teachers of local colleges and universities. They would not have military ranks and would only be able to participate in various professional and technical titles and obtain professional and technical positions. Yi Qian saluted the dean. Year 1, Class 3 Yi Qian, reporting. The girl who came in was wearing a female soldier's uniform. She had long sleeves, a jacket, a standard female soldier's military skirt, a belt around her waist, and a large brimmed hat on her head. She was valiant and full of the tenacity of a female soldier. Due to the scorching sun outside and the fact that she was walking in a hurry, there was still sweat dripping down her face. However, her eyes were extremely calm, without the slightest hint of panic. At a glance, one could tell that she was a female soldier who could withstand the wind and waves. When the dean saw Yi Qian's military aura, the smile on his stern face deepened. Yi Qian, who was highly regarded by the military and had already served China, was a female soldier who had made a lot of mistakes. Not bad. You're still so energetic after standing for more than 3 hours. The dean was very familiar with Yi Qian. The reason why she was exempted from military training was because the dean was the first person the military contacted. He pointed at the guest sofa and gestured for Yi Qian to sit down. Come, sit down and have a cup of water. Chapter 1429. Yi Qian obeyed and sat down. Like Xia Jinyuan, he sat upright and strong like a pine tree, full of military aura. Because he was wearing a military uniform, his knees were close together and his calves were slightly slanted, giving him the flexibility of a female soldier. Strength and gentleness. He was the green flower of the military. The dean nodded with satisfaction again and turned to Xia Jinyuan. Major Xia, the school will fully cooperate with the military. You should tell Yi Qian the specifics personally. The importance that the military attached to Yi Qian had exceeded his expectations. Every time something happened, Major General Yang from the army would personally call the school and send someone to pick up Yi Qian. This level of importance was no ordinary level of importance. As the dean, he was naturally happy that his own student was valued by the military. With a smile in his eyes, the dean said to Yi Qian, "Don't feel burdened, the school will also fully support you." "Yes, sir." Yi Qian did not take the initiative to ask. After answering the dean concisely, his gaze fell on Xia Jinyuan. The two of them looked completely professional, without a trace of intimacy between a couple. Xia Jinyuan, who was here for business, took Yi Qian half an hour later to the parking lot of the University of Science and Technology of China. Let's get in the car. I'll tell you in detail the mission from 7:00 p.m. to October 4th. He opened the door of a black business car and said, "Get in." Yi Qian, who had just attended the school's National Day celebration, did not even have time to change out of his sweaty casual clothes. He just carried his hastily packed luggage and got into the car with Xia Jinyuan. In the car, there was already someone waiting in the driver's seat. When he saw Yi Qian get in, he slowly said in a low and cold voice, "Yi Qian, long time no see." It was G3. Long time no see. Yi Qian bent over and got into the car. Then Xia Jinyuan bent over and got into the car like a cheetah. He closed the door and ordered G3 to start the car. All his comrades in the Snowfield Brigade were very good at driving. Because they were in a hurry, they drove very fast. When they encountered traffic jams, they were able to flexibly cut the queue and instantly overtake other cars. As soon as Xia Jinyuan got into the car, he took off Yi Qian's large-brimmed hat and said, "Time is a little tight. We have a 1:30 flight to the capital. Get changed in the car first." When the G3 heard this, it immediately turned the rearview mirror that was originally facing the back seat to the side. At the same time, it drove the car to the side. Yi Qian, who was carrying his luggage, was stunned. "In the car, changing clothes? Are you sure? Can't I change at the airport?" "Don't worry, he won't dare to peek." Xia Jinyuan glanced coldly at G3, who was focused on driving, and whispered to Yi Qian, "I will protect you. Don't worry." Yi Qian was speechless. She took a deep breath and tried her best to mentally prepare herself. Then she picked up her luggage and went to the last row of the car. It wasn't because he wanted to protect her. It was because she had never changed in front of anyone before. Xia Jinyuan couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Was she still afraid that he would peek? Major Xia, who was sitting upright and looking straight ahead, reminded her, "Change into casual clothes." Then, he heard the sound of the luggage being unzipped and the rustling of clothes. It was indeed not good to change clothes in the car. Even the slightest movement could be heard. If it weren't for the fact that they were in a hurry, he would definitely have asked her to go back to the dormitory and change before coming out. However, this wouldn't happen only once. It would happen often. He leaned forward slightly and reached out to turn on the car radio. He then turned it up to the music station and turned it up. Only then was Major Xia satisfied that he couldn't hear the sounds from the back seat. G3 glanced at him with a faint smile on his face. Chapter 1430. Fortunately, Yi Qian changed quickly. In such a small space in the car, she managed to finish changing within 2 minutes. His sweat-soaked casual clothes were neatly folded, and his small military boots had been replaced with sports shoes. He wore a white short t-shirt and black slim-fit cotton sweatpants. With his short hair that reached his chin, he looked as refreshing as the cool summer breeze, making people feel refreshed just by looking at him. Yi Qian had exquisite features. Her eyebrows were thick, and her skin was as white as porcelain. Her eyes were bright and her teeth were white. Her short hair didn't make her look ugly. Instead, it made her facial features look even more exquisite. To be honest, even the G3 members were worried about Xia Jinyuan for him to have such a beautiful girlfriend go to a military academy where there were more males than females. This was the first time Yi Qian had encountered something like this. Even though she was mentally strong, she couldn't help but feel a little awkward. Her ears were slightly red, but she pursed her lips and pretended to be calm. Xia Jinyuan looked at her with his eyes slightly closed. Then he said calmly, "There are bound to be some inconveniences when male and female soldiers work together. However, special circumstances require special treatment. Don't mind it too much." Yi Qian still had a shy smile on her face as she raised her head. Her eyes met his deep, dark eyes. There was no other emotion in his eyes, only a cold, serious look. Yi Qian pursed her lips instinctively and hid her embarrassment. She took a deep breath and looked back at him with clear eyes. Okay, I understand. In a few seconds, she adjusted her emotions and no longer felt awkward about changing clothes in the car. She treated it as part of her mission, so it wasn't a big deal. She was in a hurry to get dressed, so her hair was a little messy. Xia Jinyuan pursed his lips with a cold expression. Suddenly, he reached out and gently smoothed her messy hair. Autumn is coming. Your hair gets dry easily. You'll feel better if you use a good conditioner. Yi Jian blinked her eyes. Something was not quite right. Just a second ago, he was so serious and treated her like a subordinate. In the next second, he was so gentle and treated her as a boyfriend. She couldn't react in time. Xia Jinyuan's heart softened at the sight of her sparkling eyes. He retracted his hand and cleared his throat before getting down to business. I received a mission at the last minute. During the National Day celebration, you need to protect a leader nearby. You're not allowed to leave. Tomorrow was the celebration of the founding of our country, as well as the military parade of the century. While the whole country was celebrating, it also attracted the attention of the whole world. Not only did the highest leaders of China attend this ceremony, but there were also international friends and ambassadors from various countries. At this time, the security forces had reached the level of Red Grade A. Their air and ground forces were at full force, and even the borders had entered combat alert. The leader that Yi Qian wants to protect has a rather important political position in our country. He often represents our country on overseas visits to promote exchanges between our country and other countries. When you appear, there will be someone to lead you. You just have to pay attention to your surroundings. At this point, Xia Jinyuan purposely emphasized her tone to let Yi Qian know that her main task was to pay attention to the surroundings. Yi Qian could tell that something was wrong. She straightened her body and her expression became even more serious. For this mission, there will be a total of 3 people accompanying the leader. No matter what, you are not allowed to be more than 30 centimeters away from the leader. After the ceremony, you will accompany the leader down the tower until the Zhongnan High Guards take over. During this time, you are not allowed to communicate with anyone, and you are not allowed to leave your room alone. If you discover anything unusual, report it immediately. Chapter 1431. The distance between them must be no more than 30 centimeters. This meant that if anything went wrong, her brain and body would be able to react quickly and protect her leader from any life-threatening danger. Yi Qian understood the meaning behind Xia Jinyuan's words. Her expression became calmer, and Xia Jinyuan knew that she understood what he meant. The car sped towards the airport. Xia Jinyuan explained to Yi Qian what she needed to do over the next few days, as well as her specific mission. Due to the importance of this mission, she would be severely punished if she was not careful. He maintained a solemn expression throughout the entire process. Yi Qian, this mission is more important than anything else. If anything goes wrong, you might even be expelled from the military. Originally, a female soldier from the Nanguang military district was supposed to carry out this mission. In the end, the military district decided to send you instead. Yi Qian, do you know why? Yi Qian had already heard what Xia Jinyuan said. Her small face was especially solemn. She shook her head. I don't know. To her, protecting her leader at the celebration was even more stressful than protecting her leader overseas. Overseas, she could deal with any accidents immediately. But domestically, she couldn't even use her gun casually. Now she only had one thing on her mind: adjust her mentality as soon as possible, set her position, and face a new round of challenges. Her voice was very calm, and her dark eyes did not fluctuate too much. Xia Jinyuan felt that he could no longer see through Yi Qian. He couldn't figure out what she was thinking and whether she had too much psychological burden for this mission. It was normal for her to have psychological burdens. When he received a call from the Major General ordering him to immediately head to the National University of Science and Technology to pick up Yi Qian for the celebration mission, his heart skipped a beat. This was the first time that Little Fox was carrying out a major mission in the country. Furthermore, the Snowfield Brigade would never appear to protect a leader when carrying out a major mission in the country. Every time they carried out a major mission in the country, they would always have a specific purpose. For example, the mission this time was to eradicate an illegal organization. Xia Jinyuan continued in a low voice, "The leader has a very good impression of you. He thinks that it would be better for you to carry out this mission. Plus, you have experience in large-scale combat, so you have an advantage over the female soldiers who only carry out special missions in the Nangguang military district. The leader personally recommended you to the military, and that's why you were assigned this mission." It turned out that Yi Qian was sitting in front of the television like everyone else watching the celebration. Because of her outstanding performance, the leader was still able to remember her after so long. While Xia Jinyuan felt happy, he also felt that Yi Jian would be under a lot of pressure. His expression was cold, and his eyes were calm as he looked at Yi Jian quietly, not missing the slightest change on her face. "This mission is a very good opportunity for you to train." The Major General was very happy when he found out, but he was afraid that you would feel pressured. "He specially sent me and G3 to pick you up and give you some psychological counseling so that you can devote yourself to the mission as soon as possible. Do you have any problems right now?" Before Yi Qian could answer, Xia Jinyuan immediately said, "You don't have to tell me your personal problems. We don't accept personal problems." Yi Qian, who had been listening carefully, suddenly felt happy. Was he worried that she would back out? "No, I don't have any personal problems," Yi Qian replied seriously. She was smiling in her heart, but her expression was very serious. Complete the mission. Chapter 1432. Xia Jinyuan loved Yi Qian's drive. She was like a blade of grass that wouldn't show any signs of fear no matter what. Hearing this, a small smile finally appeared on his cold face. "Very good. If you had dared to say that there was a problem, I would have immediately reported it to the military and re-evaluated your psychological resistance." He and Yi Qian were lovers, but they were also comrades. They cared about each other in their daily lives, but they had to strictly supervise each other in battle. If there was a problem with her, as a comrade, he wouldn't turn a blind eye to it just because she was his girlfriend. He would deal with it as he saw fit. He was absolutely selfless. Yi Qian had always known that Xia Jinyuan was a man who kept a clear distinction between work and personal matters. She never thought that he would take special care of her during a mission. He was so strict with himself, so he would be strict with her as well. At a red light, G3 stopped and looked back at Yi Qian. He said slowly, "What Q King said also represents my thoughts. If one's psychological resistance isn't strong enough, there will be fatal problems during a mission. You replaced the female soldier from the Nangguang military region because her psychological resistance didn't meet the requirement. Otherwise, he wouldn't have swapped her out at the last minute." He believed that the female soldier was also very upset at this moment. This was because this was a very good opportunity to train her psychological strength. As a Special Forces soldier, she had to be ready for battle at all times. Once a mission came, she had to be in the zone immediately. There was no time for her to relax and adapt. Major General Liu agreed to let Yi Qian join the mission temporarily because he hoped that Yi Qian could train more before she joined the Snowfield Brigade. He hoped that she could improve her comprehensive abilities faster and more steadily. Xia Jinyuan also hoped so. Before Yi Qian joined the Snowfield Brigade, the mission would only be more beneficial to her. It would allow her to integrate into the high-intensity combat preparations of the Snowfield Brigade faster and better. She would be able to adapt to life in the Snowfield Brigade faster. Tenacious perseverance, tenacious will, long-lasting endurance, strong psychological quality. These were all necessary conditions for a qualified Special Forces soldier. Xia Jinyuan hoped that she could adapt to the life of a Special Forces soldier in advance. As a member of the Special Forces, Xia Jinyuan was actually very happy to hear Yi Qian's answer. His little fox would never be stopped by difficulties. She would face them head-on and walk forward fearlessly. Xia Jinyuan looked at Yi Qian quietly and asked her, "Yi Qian, do you still remember what your goal is?" He was listening intently when he suddenly heard a question that had nothing to do with the mission. He paused for a moment before answering, "I remember. I want to become a Special Forces soldier, just like you, a Special Forces soldier like G3. Her voice was very clear and her enunciation was clear and powerful. It seemed to contain infinite power, which made G3, who was driving, laugh uncontrollably. Female soldier Yi Qian was an extraordinary soldier in the hearts of all her comrades in the Snowfield Brigade. They also hoped that she could become a member of the Snowfield Brigade, become a comrade, and fight side by side with them. Very good, Yi Qian. You have to remember what you said and become a Special Forces soldier like me and G3. Xia Jinyuan raised his eyebrows and smiled. Yi Qian, we all believe in you. All our comrades in the brigade, as well as Major General Liu, believe that you can definitely become a Special Forces soldier like us. Then, do you know what kind of Special Forces soldiers like us are? Chapter 1433. The last sentence made Yi Qian's pupils constrict. Was he trying to tell him everything about himself, G3, and his mysterious comrades? The car radio was turned off, and the well-sealed car was so quiet that only the sound of their breathing could be heard. G3 drove calmly, not at all surprised by this. Before they came, Xia Jinyuan asked if the Major General could tell Yi Qian what kind of special forces they were. The Major General agreed. Why did he agree? They were both well aware of the reason. This time, the leader who arranged for Yi Jian to protect was not an ordinary leader. He was a leader who was in charge of investigating important matters. This leader rarely appeared in public. This time, he suddenly appeared. There was an unusual deep meaning behind this arrangement. At least, they knew that this leader had decided to attend the celebration. The Great Hall did not agree at all, but they agreed in the end. Then, with the addition of the Snowfield Brigade, they immediately arranged for a female soldier, who would not normally receive much attention, to be his personal bodyguard. However, the female soldier did not have a strong psychological resistance. In the end, the leader personally appointed Yi Qian to replace the female soldier's original position and protect the leader, who was willing to use himself as bait to lure the snake out of its hole. From this, it could be seen how dangerous it was for Yi Qian to stand beside this leader, who used himself as bait to catch all the criminals in one fell swoop. There was even a possibility that he would be sacrificed. Because this was a cult that had connections with foreign countries, Yi Qian sat very upright, his eyes shining like stars. He looked at Xia Jinyuan without blinking. "Captain Xia, I'm ready. Tell me, I'll listen to every word you say." God knows how interested she was in Xia Jinyuan's unit. Sometimes, one would wonder what kind of unit they were in and how powerful their comrades were to be able to enter this unit. Would they be able to become a Special Forces soldier like them or Captain Xia? Now that Xia Jinyuan was going to say it himself, Yi Qian felt a little nervous. Just now, when he knew that he was going to carry out a dangerous mission, he wasn't nervous at all. Now, he was nervous. Xia Jinyuan, who was originally in a serious mood, was stunned when he saw this. After a while, his slender fingers touched his forehead. His laughter was like rippling water. Slowly, he let out a deep laugh. This was the little fox he loved. She was so brave and pure. Our country has two special forces. One is the Snow Region Special Forces that I'm in, and the other is the Storm Amphibious Frogman Assault Team. On the battlefield, these two forces are the trump cards of our country, and they will go all out to turn the tide when necessary. With just 2 sentences, Xia Jinyuan noticed that the light in Little Fox's bright eyes was even brighter than a diamond under the sun. Although it was only 2 sentences, Yi Qian was already overwhelmed with emotions. The Sharp Knife Special Forces were able to turn the tide on the battlefield. This was the Special Forces of the Special Forces, the elite of the elite. These two forces are our country's secret forces that cannot be made public, shown in public, or known by others. No one knows of our existence, and no one knows the number of the forces we belong to. No one knows the meaning of our existence. Flowers and glory under the sun have nothing to do with us. No matter how difficult the mission is, no matter how perfect it is, as long as you are still serving in the force, your position and military rank will not change. Chapter 1434. Xia Jinyuan, who was sitting against the car door, was dressed casually. He looked no different from a successful man entering and exiting a high-class office building. He wore a black long-sleeved shirt that made him look even more elegant and steady. The sleeves were slightly rolled up, and there was a hint of arrogance in his noble elegance. Without his military uniform, he perfectly hid the sharpness of a soldier in his bones. Although his aura was still strong, he lacked the bloodthirstiness of a soldier on the battlefield and had a more reserved and profound temperament. His eyes were very deep and dark. When he spoke, his deep black eyes stared unblinkingly at Yi Qian. His low voice sounded like he was narrating a story, slowly and calmly. However, Yi Qian could hear the beauty of the magnificent sea in his calm tone, as well as the unpredictable turbulence in the depths of the sea. As he spoke, Yi Qian's expression became more solemn. Take me for example. 5 years ago I was a major. 5 years later, I'm still a major. No one knows about your contributions. No one knows about the people you saved. Sometimes, when you're on the battlefield, you even hide your nationality. No one can see your glory when you were alive. After you died, other than the Snowfield Brigade and the leaders of the military, no one else knows about it. Every soldier who joins the Snowfield Brigade will write a suicide note in advance and hand it in to the military for safekeeping. After they die, this suicide note will be sent to the soldiers' parents. I've been in the Snowfield Brigade for 4 years and have personally sent out 2 suicide notes. The parents of my fallen comrades still don't know why their son sacrificed himself. They don't know how great their son used to be. There are no flowers, no banners, no applause, no honor. There is only that we, the living, will always remember our fallen comrade. We will use our entire lives to remember and honor them. Yi Qian, this is my Xia Jinyuan's, a troop that I pledge my loyalty to. A troop that I have no regrets about sacrificing myself for. Do you still dare to set me as your goal? Xia Jinyuan's voice was still so calm when he finished speaking. But Yi Qian felt his blood boil when he heard this. Yi Qian looked at the calm Xia Jinyuan, the man who had helped her grow, held her hand, and gave his all without any complaints or regrets. Yi Qian's brows slowly curved like the bright crescent moon. Captain Xia, I'm suddenly glad that I set you as my goal and followed in your footsteps. A special force hidden by the country, a special force that could turn the tide on the battlefield and turn the situation of the entire war in an instant. Although they were unknown, they had always been dedicated to their motherland. He did not ask for anything in return, nor did he ask for flowers or applause, nor did he ask for glory. He only wanted to fight for his military uniform. Such a special force must be a super elite force. Uncle Chern had said that those who were famous and had outstanding military achievements in the special forces could be called elite special forces. And those who were unknown but could sacrifice their lives for the country in exchange for a decisive victory were called super elite special forces. In other words, Captain Xia's troop was the super elite special forces that Uncle Chern had mentioned. No wonder they rarely appeared. Once they appeared in a certain place, it would be filled with smoke and blood. Every time they carried out a mission, it was so difficult that ordinary soldiers could not imagine it. When they went, they were alive, but when they returned, their military uniforms would be stained with blood. They would die in exchange for the safety of the people of the motherland. Chapter 1435. Just like this time, Yi Qian's mission required the protection of the leader, so the risk factor was very high. The reason the leader personally appointed Yi Qian and the Major General agreed was because Yi Qian was very capable, and secondly, Yi Qian had a tender face, a fair and clean face, a gentle smile, and an unsheathed sword aura. He was just like a harmless university student. Once danger appeared, Yi Qian would be the target that would lead all the danger to himself. This was also why Xia Jinyuan requested the Major General to tell Yi Qian what kind of unit the Snowfield Brigade was. Glory has nothing to do with you, but danger will never leave your shadow. The girl in front of him was as beautiful as a painting. She was so beautiful that even the best artist in the world would find it difficult to draw her. Not only was she beautiful, but she also had a fearless spirit that even male soldiers admired. He thought that she would hesitate for a few seconds or be puzzled. But she didn't, not even for a second. He even heard the light in her eyes that was brighter than the sun. Xia Jinyuan's lips curled up slightly. There was a hint of gentleness in his dark eyes as he gazed deeply at the girl he loved. "My girl, your appearance is the greatest glory of my life, the greatest pride. I used to think that your unit must be very powerful. Now that I hear about it, it's even more extraordinary. It doesn't matter if no one knows about our existence, as long as we know about each other's existence. It doesn't matter if no one knows about our military exploits, as our existence is unknown. As for flowers, applause, banners, glory, it doesn't matter if there are any. I just need to know why I'm wearing a military uniform and why I'm holding a steel gun." Just as Yi Qian finished speaking, her hand was suddenly grabbed by the man who was quietly staring at her. It wasn't a gentle grip, but a firm grip. It was as if he would pull her directly into his arms in the next second. The Major General was hesitant before. "He didn't want me to tell you these things." Xia Jinyuan didn't do anything else. He only held her hand tightly and laughed in a low voice. "He was afraid that you would shrink back and be afraid after hearing it. The G3 and I both promised that you wouldn't shrink back after hearing it. Instead, you would be more interested. We also said that if you were really afraid, we would think of a way to make you not afraid." The G3 didn't turn around. He smiled faintly and said, "Actually, the two of us never thought that you would be afraid, nor did we think of a way to make you not afraid." From this, one could tell how much the G3 trusted Yi Qian. Yi Qian's hand was still being held tightly. She wasn't used to holding hands with Xia Jinyuan in front of her acquaintances, so she felt a little awkward. She struggled a little, but she smiled and said, "You guys trust me. What if I really quit? I don't think you can do anything to me. We didn't consider that this kind of problem wouldn't occur." Xia Jinyuan wouldn't let go. She struggled with all her might. He raised his eyebrows and gave Yi Qian a meaningful look, which meant, "If you move again, I will hug you directly." A moment ago, Xia Jinyuan was still the professional Major Xia. Now, he was back to being the shameless Xia Jinyuan. Yi Qian glared at him and mouthed silently, "The G3 is in the car. Can you restrain yourself a little?" "G3, I'm holding hands with my girlfriend. Do you have a problem with that? Xia Jinyuan didn't like to sneak around, so he openly asked his comrade, You don't have to speak. Just nod or shake your head. Chapter 1436. Sometimes, G3 really felt that it was a little annoying to have such a shameless captain. He asked him if he had any opinions, but he didn't let him speak and could only nod or shake his head. Wasn't this telling him that he had to nod his head? Okay, comrades should help each other. G3 nodded, and nodded again, indicating that he didn't have any opinions. He quickly glanced back at Xia Jinyuan through the rearview mirror, and his body trembled violently. Damn, the way Q King looked at Yi Qian was so sweet that it made him choke. However, it looked quite enviable. It looked like he had to go back and ask Q King how to be in a relationship. Why was it that every time he went to meet his girlfriend, he didn't have anything to say? The two of them were either walking together in silence or helping the children in the mountain village with their lessons. Otherwise, she would be teaching in the dilapidated classroom while he chopped firewood in silence. It seemed less like the intimacy between Q King and Yi Qian. Looking, G3 actually figured out that something was wrong. Yi Qian was very reserved and knew to keep a certain distance from Q King in front of his comrades. But Q King didn't give her a chance to keep a distance at all. After discussing business, he immediately seized the time to talk about love. And he was afraid that he would be rash and scare his girlfriend away. Not to mention kissing, he didn't even dare to hold her hand. No, he had to change. He had to take action when it was time. How could he be overcautious? If he took action, he wouldn't regret it. If his girlfriend was scared, he wasn't a beast. What was there to be afraid of? Xia Jinyuan didn't know that he had enlightened G3. He raised his eyebrows and said to Yi Qian, My comrades are all very honest. They definitely won't lie. If he says he has no opinions, then he definitely has no opinions. Good comrades. They knew what to say at the right time. Yi Qian was no longer the little girl who was a little resistant to relationships in high school. After all, she had lived 2 lives. Although she was not as thick-skinned as Xia Jinyuan, she was not stupid. She could easily see through Xia Jinyuan's little trick. She looked at him with a faint smile and said, You told G3 not to open their mouths to express their opinions. If the driver shakes his head left and right, he will look away. Only by nodding can he not affect the front and drive safely. Sometimes, when the girlfriend was too smart, the boyfriend would feel pressured. Xia Jinyuan, whose intentions were exposed, did not feel awkward at all. He held her hand and gently caressed it. The smile on his face deepened. He leaned forward slightly and tilted his head slightly to look at Yi Qian with a gentle and focused gaze. Because I don't want to see you feel awkward. So, I used my authority as the captain to ask my comrades to remain silent. Yi Qian could not help but blush. His voice was very low, and it was filled with deep indulgence. Little fox, we haven't seen each other for a month. Have you missed me? Not only was his gaze gentle, it also seemed to be filled with sticky honey. It took Yi Qian a lot of effort to pull her gaze away from his focused gaze. She then pulled one of her hands out of his and mercilessly covered that elegant and perfect face with her palm. Sit properly. Don't disturb G3's driving. What a dangerous man. She had looked at this face for a few years, but every time she looked at it seriously, her heart could not help but race. He was also looking at her with such a gentle gaze. Yi Jian could already feel her heart pounding. Thump, thump, thump. Chapter 1437. As for whether she missed him or not, Yi Qian didn't feel the need to answer. She didn't like lying, but if she told the truth, she would be embarrassed. Xia Jinyuan, whose face was covered by her hand, didn't get a reply, but his sexy lips curled up. He looked ahead and chuckled. I miss you a lot. I don't have time to think about you during the day, but I miss you a lot before I go to bed at night. Yi Qian. Miss you a lot before you go to bed? Why do I feel like his thoughts aren't that simple? She missed him too. But she never thought about him before she went to bed. She didn't have much time to think about him during the day either. She had to stand at attention every day, go through formation training, and interact with her classmates. Her time was so packed that she didn't have much time to think about Xia Jinyuan. However, every time she walked past the school grounds, she couldn't help but wonder if Xia Jinyuan had walked past the same places she walked past. The more she thought about it, the sweetness in her heart grew. Yi Jian maintained a calm face and was not bewitched by his words of love. Major Xia could not help but turn his head to look at his girlfriend. Seeing that his girlfriend was sitting upright with a calm expression and only her ears were still red, he suddenly felt as if 100 pairs of cat claws were scratching his heart, making his heart itch. Needless to say, his little fox definitely missed him. When G3 saw this, his face remained expressionless, but on the inside, he couldn't help but laugh. Everything had its vanquisher. Yi Qian was born to vanquish Q King. Xia Jinyuan, who was overjoyed, knew that Yi Qian was shy, so he didn't continue the intimate actions between lovers. He sat upright and obediently. Time is a little tight. I need to speed. When G3 saw that both of them were sitting upright, he looked at the time and couldn't help but frown. The flight is at 1:30 p.m. It's 12:54 p.m. now. Q King, we need to contact the airport. Check-in had to be done half an hour in advance. This was a very strict requirement and couldn't be delayed by even a minute. However, Xia Jinyuan's situation was special, so the airport had to cooperate fully with them. The military had already contacted the airport and asked them to prepare for the delay in advance. Once there was a need to delay the flight, they would be able to start work immediately. Very soon, the airport received a call. The 3 special personnel would only be able to board the plane at around 1:15 p.m. All the departments would cooperate fully and there would be no mistakes. We've arrived at the airport. We'll arrive at the lobby in 3 minutes. Xia Jinyuan spoke to the relevant personnel in charge of the airport as he walked. Yes, we have entered the elevator and will arrive at the lobby soon. At this time, it was already 1:15. There were still 15 minutes before the departure time. The 3 figures walked out of the elevator, and the person in charge of the airport led the 3 of them to a special passageway. From the time they checked into boarding the plane, it only took a total of 6 minutes. At 1:24 a.m., the passengers on the flight to the capital boarded and sat down one by one. The passengers in the economy class put away their luggage, sat in their seats, buckled their seatbelts, and prepared for the flight. In the business class cabin, several flight attendants separated the first 4 empty seats with curtains so that the passengers in the business class cabin couldn't see who would be sitting in the 4 empty seats. Someone's phone beeped. Then, the person picked up the call and said lazily, "Hello." After a while, she said, "Second brother, I'm sorry. I really don't have time on National Day. I have to go to the capital for a trip." "Lie to you? Why would I lie to you?" Zhixiang, second brother, said. "I lied to him." "Say something to him." Chapter 1438. It was the end of September, and the sun was still scorching. The sunlight was so bright that it was blinding. Yi Zhifan stood in front of the hotel's floor-to-ceiling window. He lowered his eyes and said gloomily, "The capital is under control now." "Brother-in-law, why did you go to the capital? Don't tell me you went there to watch the celebration." "Hey, second brother, no wonder you're a high-ranking official. How could you guess that?" Ever since his identity was restored, Sun Yaozu had been living a comfortable life. His body was full of fat, as if he was afraid that others didn't know that he was rich. A golden chain as thick as a pinky hung around his neck. As he bent down and sat down, the golden chain hung down from his neck, shining with a golden light. He sat down and winked at Yi Zhixiang, indicating for her to take the phone. He had nothing to say to his brother, who was an official. Yi Zhifan naturally didn't believe that Sun Yaozu didn't have the awareness to go to the capital to watch the celebration. Moreover, with his status, did he have the right to watch it live? I'm talking to you about something serious now. Go somewhere safer and talk to me. He couldn't say it even if he didn't believe him. If they wanted to get rid of Yi Qian, only Sun Yaozu could do it. He just didn't know if this coward would do it. He hated Yi Qian so much that he wanted to kill him, but he could tolerate it. There was no other way. With Ho Zi in the southern province, Sun Yaozu didn't dare to make a move. Old Madame Yi had repeatedly warned that if they wanted to get rid of Yi Qian, Yi Zhifan had to do it first. They shouldn't be so anxious to avoid being used as a tool. Second brother, I really can't go anywhere else. I've already boarded the plane. If you had called 10 minutes earlier, I could have gone to the washroom to talk to you. Sun Yaozu, who was too fat, felt cramped in the business class seat. He moved his body and cursed unhappily, F***ck, I can't get any comfort even if I spend money. Yi Zhixiang was touching up her lipstick with a small makeup mirror. When she heard that, she replied unhappily, I told you to be careful and control your weight. Although she said that, her eyes that were no longer young flashed with a hint of pride. It would be better if he was fatter so that he wouldn't have the energy to do anything in a woman's bed. Otherwise, she might end up with an illegitimate child or something. The flight attendant's sweet voice greeted all the passengers on behalf of the entire flight crew. Sun Yaozu rolled his eyes and raised his phone so that Yi Zhifan could hear the broadcast. Hearing the voice, Yi Zhifan was convinced that Sun Yaozu had indeed gone to the capital. Then, Yi Zhixiang's strange voice came from the other end. Second brother, if you really have time, go to the hospital and visit Mom. Now that Mom can speak, as her son, shouldn't you go and accompany her? I didn't ask you to pay a single cent for the medical expenses. Can't you be more proactive about other things? Yi Zhixiang was not a good person, but she was very filial to old Madame Yi. Her family was rich anyway, so she used all sorts of treatments, such as acupuncture, massage, and so on. What's more, it really worked. Old Madame Yi, who was originally unable to speak, could now speak with a crooked mouth. Old Madame Yi was very good to her daughter. Although she was old and paralyzed, she was still able to enjoy life. Some of the patients in the hospital were very envious. As for Yi Zhifan, he did a good job of keeping up appearances, but it was impossible for him to go and accompany old Madame Yi every day. If it wasn't for his vigilance back then, he would have ended up like Yi Zhifan. Hearing this, he said calmly, tell Sun Yaozu that Yi Qian might be investigating how her parents died back then. After you're done playing, think about how to deal with it. As her brother, I'm worried about what you're going to do. Ha, you guys ran out to play without saying a word. Chapter 1439. Then, he hung up the phone even though he clearly heard Yi Zhixiang anxiously say, Hey, hey, hey. Yi Zhifan chuckled as he held the warm phone. You want to fight with me? Dream on. He couldn't deal with Yi Qian because he had to take into account the military behind her. However, Sun Yaozu was nothing. He was a fugitive. Someone had erased his identity for him, so he could still let him break the law. Yi Zhixiang felt terrible. She handed the phone over with a pale face and said in a trembling voice, my brother said, that wretched girl is investigating the past. This. Shut up. Although Sun Yaozu didn't look too good, he still knew where he was and stopped his wife from talking. Don't talk about family matters on the plane. You better have some guts. Don't panic over the slightest thing. As he spoke, his fat body moved closer and his cunning face showed a hint of pride. Didn't Mom say that he should be more scared than we are? Your brother is the most cunning. He wouldn't be so kind as to tip us off and trick you. Yi Zhixiang had inherited old Madame Ye's selfishness, but not her shrewdness. However, she was as obedient as old man Yi. Hearing this, she patted her chest and sighed in relief. You scared me. You scared me, I thought. Receiving her husband's fierce glare, she didn't finish her sentence. A few steady footsteps came from the front, followed by the sound of whispers. The curtain that the stewardess had purposely put up moved slightly. Someone sat down. The plane was about to take off. The sweet voice of the stewardess reminded all passengers to check their seatbelt. Yi Qian fastened his seatbelt and sat down in his seat. He exhaled a breath of hot air. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly heard a familiar voice from behind the curtain. It was a voice that he hadn't heard in years. His calm face turned cold. What's wrong? Xia Jinyuan couldn't help but ask. G3 also looked at her inquisitively. Her expression changed instantly, and there was a hint of murderous intent in her eyes. She and Xia Jinyuan looked at each other, then turned their heads and looked at the curtain. Yi Qian's expression only changed after one of the men spoke in a gruff voice. I ran into an acquaintance. I didn't expect him to be on the plane. Yi Qian lowered his voice and said coldly, Our relationship is terrible. I'm afraid he can recognize my voice. Xia Jinyuan pursed his lips. There were only a handful of people who had a bad relationship with Yi Qian. It was not Yi Zhifan's voice, but a strange voice that he had never heard before. A few seconds later, Xia Jinyuan's face darkened. Don't let them affect your mood. Take a break. He had already guessed who was sitting behind him. It was someone who had almost killed Yi Qian. Sun Yaozu didn't know that Yi Qian was right in front of him. He said, What the hell is this? It's so tight that my stomach hurts. All right. Stop talking. Everyone has to buckle up. Do you think you're the only one? I told you to control your weight, but you didn't listen. Every time you're on the plane, you keep nagging. It was Yi Zhixiang's voice. Yi Qian, who was resting with his eyes closed, pursed his lips coldly. Although she looked calm without opening her eyes, her hands were clenched tightly. The two people behind her had almost killed her. No matter how calm she was still affected. Chapter 1440. Yi Qian's emotions had only fluctuated for a split second. By the time she closed her eyes, her emotions had already calmed down. She naturally had to settle her debts one by one, but she couldn't stop herself from moving forward just because of her past. Uncle Zhen didn't want her to do this. Uncle Chen didn't want her to do this. Xia Jinyuan, as well as the other leaders who had high hopes for her, didn't want her to do this either. In her previous life, she was alone and helpless. In this life, there were people who loved her, people who cared about her, and people who silently supported her. She also had this wonderful time to accompany her. How could she let down this reborn life? Under the influence of Uncle Zhen, Yi Qian, who had come with hatred, finally put her own future first. She temporarily put aside those who had harmed her. Before her wings were fully grown, it was best to bide her time. Seeing her closed eyes, Xia Jinyuan's face darkened. He saw her frown as if she was suffering. Xia Jinyuan reached out and held Yi Qian's hand. If you don't want to see them, let me handle it. The Yi family was indeed annoying. It was better to get rid of them directly than to keep them around. Yi Qian, whose eyes were still closed, gently shook her head, indicating that she didn't need Xia Jinyuan's help. Why? Xia Jinyuan asked softly. His fingers gently caressed the soft skin in his hand. Her hands were very beautiful. Her skin was white and delicate. When he held them, it was as if they were boneless. It touched his heart. Just like him, there was a thin layer of calluses between her palms and fingers. This was the result of years of training. It's not a good idea to leave them alone. They have to be dealt with eventually. You stopped me in the past. Why do you still want to stop me now? Xia Jinyuan looked down and gazed deeply at his beloved girl. He didn't quite understand why she was so opposed to him handling the Yi family's affairs for her. After all, Xia Jinyuan was an important figure. Although he had joined the military, if he really wanted to make a name for himself, who would dare to not give him face? No matter how well hidden the person behind Yi Jifan was or how powerful he was, if he wanted to deal with a provincial official, would that person stop him? Would that person dare to go against the family Xia? Before going against him, he had to consider whether he was strong enough. Yi Qian's eyelashes fluttered slightly, and his brows furrowed a little more, as if he had something difficult to say, and didn't know where to start. Is there something you can't tell me? Xia Jinyuan asked again. He couldn't think of any other reason. The atmosphere became heavy. G3 glanced at Xia Jinyuan, then silently turned to look out of the window. Outside, the sky was clear for thousands of miles, and only the blue sky could be seen. This was the purest and most pure scenery. Yi Qian, just like the blue sky, was so pure and simple, but also had the mysterious vastness of the sky. People who looked at her couldn't help but admire her. What kind of unspeakable difficulties did she have? If she really was hiding something, then it must be extraordinary. Thinking of this, G3 hurriedly turned his head. His gaze was fixed on Xia Jinyuan, and Xia Jinyuan could feel it. Xia Jinyuan, who was waiting for Yi Qian's reply, looked up and saw his comrade communicating with him with his eyes. Speak properly, don't be too impatient. He nodded slightly, indicating that he knew what to do. Seeing this, G3 was relieved and shifted his gaze back to the blue sky. He calmly admired the monotonous and boring clouds in the sky. Chapter 1441. Yi Qian did not open her eyes. It was as if she had really fallen asleep. Actually, she did not. It was obvious from her fluttering eyelashes that her emotions were fluctuating again. There were too many things that were inconvenient for her to talk about. She wanted to talk about them, but she did not know where to start or where to start. She was the only one who knew about those secrets. She was the only one who knew about them. She only wanted to solve those problems by herself. After a long time, Yi Qian slowly opened her eyes. She tried to smile to tell him that she was fine and that he did not need to worry. Xia Jinyuan felt a pang in his heart. He was very familiar with the look in her eyes. She had once looked at him with the same look in her eyes. There was a deep sadness and struggle in her eyes. Those eyes that were as bright as obsidian seemed to be covered with dust. Although she was smiling, it made him feel sad. His girl, his little fox, what secrets do you have that you can't talk about? Seeing the look in her eyes again, Xia Jinyuan was certain that Yi Qian had a huge secret in her heart that she could not tell anyone, not even him. It's good that you're fine. Go to sleep. After a long time, Xia Jinyuan smiled and said softly, if she did not want to talk about it, then so be it. The secret hidden in her heart was like a seed that had not yet sprouted. One day, he would hear it. He held her hand and she could feel that he was comforting her with his strength. His gentle gaze was like a feather, gently caressing her cold and hard heart. It inadvertently left a soft spot for her to feel warm. His gentleness made her feel at peace. Yi Qian nodded meekly and closed her eyes. The entire flight took about 3 hours. It was enough time for Yi Qian to have a good sleep. Originally, she was not sleepy, but under Xia Jinyuan's gentle gaze, Yi Qian felt at ease and didn't know when she fell asleep. G3 turned to look at Xia Jinyuan again. He raised his eyebrows and mouthed, things seem a little tricky. Calm down. She will tell you when she wants to. Even G3 could tell that the little fox had something on her mind. I'm not in a hurry. Everyone is by my side. I'm not afraid. Xia Jinyuan answered. At the same time, he raised his hand and planted a kiss on the back of Yi Jian's hand under G3's gaze. G3. The chilly water got into his eyes. He wanted to use water to wash it away. Suddenly, he was provoked again. When the plane was about to land at Beijing Airport, Yi Qian had already woken up. When the plane came to a stop, 2 flight attendants stood by the aisle to prevent the passengers behind from suddenly walking over. F*CK, what kind of game is this? We're both in business class, but I have to wait for the people in front to leave first. Sun Yaozu's dissatisfied voice faintly floated from behind. Yi Qian's lips curled up slightly. With a sneer, he quickly got off the plane and left under the guidance of the flight crew. When they walked out of the airport, they were immediately met by soldiers in plain clothes. Yi Qian didn't sit in the same car as Xia Jinyuan and G3. Instead, she sat in the same car as Major General Yang from the army. Fortunately, she was experienced. As soon as she got on the car, she saw Major General Yang's flashing badge. Yi Qian reacted quickly and didn't forget the proper etiquette. Ha ha ha, Xiaoyi, did I scare you? Major General Yang saw this and smiled even more amiably. Long time no see. The older you get, the more energetic you become. You look more like a soldier. Chapter 1442. The last time he met the Major General was during the Spring Festival. It hadn't been that long. The more Major General Yang looked at his own soldier, the more satisfied he was. He had performed so well in the Navy that the commander of the Navy would call him from time to time to ask when he would send Yi Qian over to study. Fortunately, the Army had acted early. Otherwise, he would have been snatched away by the Navy. What scared him even more was that the commander of the Navy dared to play matchmaker. He wanted to introduce Yi Qian to Demon King Li as his girlfriend. He even said that they would be family in the future and that Yi Qian was welcome to visit at any time. He had ulterior motives. He even used his beauty to trick Yi Qian. Now that he was in the capital, he had to squeeze some time out to have a heart-to-heart talk with the future Special Forces soldier. Don't be too reserved. We're just here to chat. There's nothing else. Don't be too nervous. The Major General could see that Yi Qian's expression was a little serious. He couldn't help but slow down and ask if the 3-hour trip was enjoyable. It was obvious that the Major General was very professional and rarely talked about family matters. Even the topics he picked were a little stiff. Yi Qian relaxed and smiled. Everything is fine. Captain Xia and the others took good care of me. I fell asleep less than 10 minutes after boarding the plane and only woke up when the plane landed. There was no pressure or nervousness during the whole trip. Not bad, not bad. You should seize the time to recharge your energy. He mentioned to you about the mission in the next few days, right? The fact that he could still sleep meant that he had good mental resilience and mental fortitude. The Major General even restrained his military might. It was obvious that he was very satisfied with Yi Qian. He was personally appointed by the leader and fully cooperated with the military. As the Major General, he was under a lot of pressure. He was worried that Xia Jinyuan was young and didn't know much and would shock Yi Qian. Now it seemed that his worries were groundless. As the car started, Yi Qian faintly felt that the Major General didn't come over just to chat with him. Yi Qian's sharp sixth sense kept reminding her that she could speak in a relaxed tone, but her heart had to be tense. She shouldn't get carried away just because of the Major General's gentle attitude. Her relaxed attitude made the Major General even happier. Relax when it's time. You're right. Little Yi, the leader has high hopes for you. You can complete this mission well. As he spoke, he handed over an army camouflage folder in his hand. Take a look at this information. You can think about it yourself. There's not much time. It's from the airport to the place you'll be staying tonight. As expected, there was something else. Yi Qian took the folder and heaved a sigh of relief. A beam of light shone from the side. It was too dark in the car, so the Major General personally turned on the flashlight for Yi Qian so that Yi Qian could see clearly. How could Yi Qian let the Major General hold the lamp for him? He quickly reached out his hand, but the Major General raised his hand and avoided it. Look carefully, don't get distracted. After reading it, remember it in your mind and heart. The Major General's expression was extremely cold. Yi Qian's eyes narrowed and he tensed up as he opened the folder. After looking at it for less than 3 minutes, Yi Qian's calm expression became more and more serious. Her eyebrows began to knit together. When she saw the death toll at the bottom, her eyes twitched violently. You can't see the danger because someone used their body to block the danger. In her mind, this sentence jumped out with the color of blood. Just because you can't see the danger doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's because someone blocked the danger and kept you safe. Chapter 1443. They are the evil organization that has caused the most harm to society since the founding of the People's Republic. They create and spread all kinds of rumors that threaten the stability of society. They have also made many public speeches to attack the country and the government. They also smuggle and distribute large amounts of their books and propaganda. Inside the car, as the Major General spoke coldly, the temperature seemed to drop by several degrees. This organization is not only in our country but also abroad. The leader you are protecting is the person in charge of this case, so he has a lot of information in his hands. According to the intelligence, this organization has already launched a series of assassination operations. They are trying to assassinate the person in charge to prevent our country from investigating them. Yi Qian, once you accept the follow-up mission, the danger you will face will be even greater than the mission you carried out in Pakistan. Indeed, it was very dangerous. The Pakistani side had guns on hand when carrying out missions, so they could raise their guns and complete the kill at any time. You can't do it in China. You can only do it under special circumstances. As the light source of the thin flashlight was turned off, Yi Qian's expression was dimmed by the street lights outside. He couldn't tell what she was thinking at this time, nor could he see through her thoughts. In the past, she had basically carried out missions with Xia Jinyuan, so she only knew about it from him. What about this time? Was Xia Jinyuan going with her? There was also the problem of time. After pondering for a while, Yi Qian said, "Major General, I only have 7 days off. I'm afraid I won't be able to make it on time." As if he was sure she would agree, the Major General said, "You don't have to worry about the time. We will communicate with the school. Once you have thought about it, I will immediately contact the military and the local police." After speaking, the Major General paused for about 2 seconds, then asked Yi Qian, "Xia Jinyuan and the others have already told you which unit they are in, right? Do you have any thoughts?" "Thoughts? What kind of thoughts are you referring to?" "A super elite unit." Yi Qian smiled and replied with a yearning look in her eyes, "Major General, I'm not afraid of being laughed at, but this is my goal. I think every soldier would be proud to be able to join such a unit." It was a little different from what he had expected. He wanted to ask her if she had any concerns, fears, or hesitations, but he didn't expect to hear a completely different answer. The Major General narrowed his eyes slightly. The golden branches and leaves on his epaulets and the golden star emblem flashed across the neon lights. The Major General turned around and let himself face the young military school student completely. He wanted to see if she really thought so, if she was really so fearless. Yi Qian did not avoid the Major General's gaze and allowed him to size him up. Outside the car, there was only the sound of the engine. Inside the car, there was no sound. Not only did the air seem to have frozen, even the people inside the car seemed to be holding their breath. The guard was not affected and continued to drive. After a long time, he heard the Major General's laughter. It was light and gratifying, and he was happier than if he had won a battle. "Good, good, good. Without any more words, the Major General repeated the word good repeatedly to express his happiness. Such a female soldier, such an outstanding female soldier, a heroine. In the other car, G3 said to Xia Jinyuan, who was sitting by the window, the Major General came personally and ordered Yi Qian to go alone. Q King, something is not right. He could already smell the danger. However, Q King looked so calm that he wondered if he was overthinking things. Otherwise, as a boyfriend, how could Q King not feel anything? It was impossible for him to not feel anything. Chapter 1444. The Major General had personally come over and called Yi Qian to the car alone. This matter was already unusual, so there was no need to think too much about it. There's nothing unusual about it. The leader she's protecting is not ordinary. After the celebration, it's not impossible for there to be some follow-up missions. Didn't we experience it before? Xia Jinyuan said calmly. His elegant and handsome face was expressionless. There was only an unfathomable calmness on his face. If she has a solo mission, the military will not let us know. I have no right to ask. In short, he would not interfere with Yi Qian's actions, nor would he ask about her actions. This was the most basic principle of a soldier. The taciturn G3 suddenly looked up at Xia Jinyuan. Yi Qian is your girlfriend. Aren't you worried? Is there any use in worrying? Faced with his comrade's surprise, Xia Jinyuan smiled calmly. Is there any use in worrying during a mission? G3 Yi Qian is my girlfriend and also my comrade. On the battlefield, I will fight side by side with Yi Qian just like how I fight side by side with you guys. When we are on a mission, I will work side by side with Yi Qian just like how we divide the work. We are not just lovers. We are also comrades in arms who protect our country. When she is on a mission, I pray that she returns safely and that she completes the mission perfectly. Of course I will be worried about her. That's why I pay great attention to her training. I will turn my worries into harsh training so that she can complete the mission with her own abilities and return safely. Xia Jinyuan and Yi Jian's love didn't involve too much romance and love. Their love and their interactions were strict, encouraging, supporting, and waiting for each other, because there were too many unknowns and too many dangers in love. There was no way for the two of them to be together forever. Only by putting their lives on the line could they make each other feel at ease. G3 was speechless for a long time after hearing this. After at least 5 minutes, he nodded gently. I understand. It was a different kind of love, a different way of getting along with each other. It was a unique love between Q King and Yi Qian. That night, Xia Jinyuan did not meet up with Yi Qian. At 4 o'clock in the morning the next day, Xia Jinyuan saw Yi Qian, who was dressed in a low-key outfit, pass by him. He was responsible for keeping watch in the dark, while she was responsible for personal protection. They each had their own duties and did not disturb each other. Director, this way please. Yi Qian, who had only slept for 3 hours that night, memorized the leader's itinerary. He spent 2 hours checking the places that the Director General would need to pass through during the day, confirming where there were blind spots and where there might be danger. Yi Qian went through all these details in advance. The Director General was not tall and was a little thin, but he walked with vigor. Although there were gray hairs on his temples, his vigor was better than that of a young man. Faced with the female soldiers sent by the military, the Director General felt a little sorry for them when he first saw them, but there was no point in saying more, so he could only accept it. Xiao Yi, walk behind me. You don't have to block everything in front of me. At 4 o'clock in the morning, all the leaders were immersed in their work. The 54-year-old Director General did not want Yi Qian to protect him with his life, so he reminded him from time to time. Yi Qian, who was dressed like a translator, smiled and said, "Don't worry, nothing will happen." Chapter 1445. The Director General wanted to walk to the front so that Yi Qian could protect him. He escorted the Director General to the bulletproof car. This was Yi Qian's second mission to protect a leader. He did not have any stage fright or fear. The soldier driving the car was from Zongnanhai. Coincidentally, Yi Qian had trained with him in the underground training room of an abandoned factory in the southern province. When he saw Yi Qian last night, the soldier was surprised. The bulletproof car drove to the city gate tower. The car was not slow, but it was very stable and did not shake at all. The Director General was wearing a gray Chinese tunic suit. He did not forget to tidy himself up after getting into the car so that he would not be rude to the leader later. Yi Qian was not the only one protecting the leader. There were also soldiers from Zongnanhai. They were mainly responsible for the journey from the hotel to the city wall. After that, Yi Qian would escort them all the way to the city wall. The celebration began at 10 a.m. All the leaders would prepare to enter the city gate tower in advance. In the controlled capital, the main roads at 4 a.m. seemed to be empty. However, in places where no one knew and no one could see, there were elite special forces hidden. It was autumn in October. Capital was already cold. Yi Qian got out of the bulletproof car and quickly blocked the Director General's blind spot to get out of the car. Someone's gaze fell on her. It was cold and hard, like a cold blade brushing against her scalp. It was the gaze of a sniper hidden nearby. It was very tangible. "Thank you for your hard work, Xiao Yi." The Director General was very polite. Facing a female soldier who was only 4 years older than his granddaughter, the Director General was as kind as an ordinary grandfather. Yi Qian pursed his lips and smiled. "You're welcome. This is my duty. Please come this way and sit in the lounge for a while." "How can I sit still? My heart is surging with emotions. I'm looking forward to the celebration." In the wee hours of the morning, the temperature in Beijing was lower than during the day. When they got out of the car, they could feel the cold wind caressing their faces. The secretary walked at a leisurely pace, with the composure of a leader. He chatted with Yi Qian in a relaxed manner. "It has been 15 years since the last military parade. Our country has experienced so many ups and downs in order to achieve the prosperity it has today. In the future, our country will become even stronger and stronger." Yi Qian, who was closest to the Director General, lowered her head and listened attentively. When the Director General asked her a question, she would immediately answer. She was highly focused and made sure that she could hear every word the Director General asked. Time ticked by, and the morning sun arrived as scheduled. It was clear and bright like a mirror. On the straight main road, the 17 teams that were being inspected were already prepared. They stood facing the rising sun, waiting for the moment of inspection to arrive. 21 equipment squads were also waiting. There were main battle tanks, tracked infantry fighting vehicles, anti-tank missiles, surface-to-air missiles, aviation missiles, and other high-tech weapons and equipment that were designed and produced by themselves. The air echelon had already taken off and would appear in the sky above the heart of the motherland on time to accept the inspection of tens of thousands of people. This was a grand ceremony that represented the strength of the country and the prosperity of the nation. It was a report from the soldiers of our country to the motherland and the people. It was a celebration of not forgetting history and not forgetting our martyrs to carry on the past and open up the future. All snipers are in position. The city gate tower is ready. The city gate tower is ready. Prepare to enter. Prepare to enter. A cold, metallic voice sounded in Yi Qian's earpiece. She followed the Director General up the city gate tower and walked to the top of the city gate tower amidst the welcoming music. Chapter 1446. At the bottom left corner of the tower, there were people gathered. There were representatives of enterprises, companies, the country, overseas Chinese, and so on. They were all national outstanding representatives who had gone through strict checks and confirmed that they were not carrying any dangerous items. On the other side were ordinary citizens. They were also going to watch the celebration with the country's top leaders. Sun Yao was fat. Squeezing into the crowd made him feel a little out of breath. Listening to the welcoming music, he whispered to Yi Zhixiang, "Damn, I really made it in. Our people are too awesome. They even managed to get me in here. Tell me, is there anything I can't do in the future? It's a celebration. Ha ha ha, I, Sun Yaozu, can't believe I'm here." He used to be a fugitive who couldn't tell people his real name. Now, ha ha ha, this feels great. In a flash, he had become a good citizen. He could even watch the celebration. Yi Zhixiang was taking a video of herself with a DV camera. She raised her chin proudly and said to her husband, "This is nothing. Our lives will only get better and better." Back then, the fortune teller who matched our horoscopes said that I'm a blessing to my husband. I'm a blessing to you. That's right, that's right. You're a blessing to your husband. Sun Yaozu felt the same way. Ever since Yi Zhixiang married him, with old Madame Ye's help, they received a sum of money to invest. After 10 years, their family business expanded. They were so prosperous that they had nowhere to spend their money. Yi Zhixiang took the DV camera and pointed it at the tower. Her bright red lips moved up and down as she said, "You're secretly happy. In the future, our family will have mountains of gold and silver. We won't be able to spend them all even after several lifetimes." She didn't say the word money. Yi Zhixiang stared at the small square screen of the DV camera with an expression of disbelief. She nudged her husband, "Yaozu, look at the tower. Why do I see Yi Qian, that damned girl?" Sun Yaozu was stunned. What? He thought he heard wrong. Let me see again." Yi Zhixiang also thought she saw wrong. She tiptoed and looked up the tower again. She didn't see Yi Qian. Did I see wrong? Did I mistake her for Yi Qian? Of course she saw wrong. Was there a need to say more? Sun Yaozu glared at his wife. Just focus on filming and cut the crap. How could she make it to the top of the city gate tower with that lousy appearance of hers? You should take your brain with you. But he didn't feel like he was seeing things. The bewildered Yi Zhixiang looked over again, but she didn't see anything. What they didn't know was that in a police station in a certain county, a retired policeman was staring at the TV screen with his eyes wide open. His focus was on the face of a young woman in formal clothes. Yi Qian. This was the Yi Qian that he had attended during his military training 2 years ago. Yi Qian, who had a 100% accuracy rate and stood in a military posture that was more like a soldier than a soldier. She actually accompanied the country's leaders to appear at the grand celebration and even watched the military parade with many of the leaders. The police officer didn't say anything. He just watched silently and was happy. Back then, he had said that the girl, Yi Qian, would definitely have a bright future. Look, he was right. She had actually come this far. Impressive. Too impressive. The police officer wasn't the only one who saw it. And Jiasin also saw it. She, who was watching TV at home, screamed, "Yi Qian, I see Yi Qian." Chapter 1447. After screaming, she immediately covered her mouth and looked around the house. Luckily, she was at home and no one heard her scream. There was no news about Yi Qian attending the celebration. Could it be a secret? She was a military school student now. Inexplicably, Jiasin felt a little nervous. Of course, she felt even more proud. Yi Qian's figure was only caught by one set of cameras and disappeared in less than 3 seconds. It was not because the camera moved away, but because she felt the camera was looking at her and reacted quickly to avoid showing her face. She reacted quickly, but those who were really familiar with her and were watching the television carefully still noticed her. Uncle Chen, who was in the army, secretly wiped the corners of his eyes. Old uncle, you left one step too early. Little Yi is going to be successful, she's going to be successful. They all accompanied the leader to the tower to watch the celebration. You left early and didn't see this scene. No, he had to go to the provincial capital and tell his old uncle. Old Chen, why are you crying? Little Yi is going to be successful, you should be happy. Lu Tuan and political commissar Yen were watching with him. As people who were most familiar with Yi Qian, 3 seconds was enough for them to see Yi Qian. Lu Tuan laughed and said, I think you're crying from happiness. Of course I'm crying from happiness. Little Yi is going to be successful, we're all happy. Political commissar Yen also laughed and patted Headmaster Chen's shoulder. That's right. You should also relax. In the future, little Ye's path will only be wider and wider. She will have great prospects. Principal Chen wiped the corners of his eyes again and smiled. I'm happy. It's a pity that old uncle didn't see it. Next time you go to the provincial capital, bring me along. I'll tell old uncle, and let him be happy in the afterlife. The celebration was still going on. Yi Qian, who was avoiding the camera, pursed his lips a little. It was a live broadcast. Even if it was only 3 seconds, it would still appear on the television. He did not know if there would be any trouble. Luckily, it was only for 3 seconds. Even Yi Zhifan and Yi Ying did not notice it. They did not expect Yi Qian to appear on the city gate tower with the leader. A fighter jet flew past in the sky, its rumbling sound carrying a supreme deterrence, intimidating everyone in all directions. Even the people who were watching couldn't remain calm and raised their heads to watch. Yi Qian did not raise her head. Even though she knew that the security was so tight that even a mosquito would not be able to escape, she still followed her duties and paid attention to the surroundings to ensure the safety of the bureau chief. The dove of peace spread its wings and flew past the city gate tower. It flew into the sky, signifying that the celebration was about to come to an end. Yi Qian pressed down on his earpiece. After listening to the voice on the other end, he approached the Director General. Director General, we've captured 4 major criminals. All right, tell them to keep a close eye on him. The Director General maintained a smile on his face. He was not affected by the good news at all. Xiao Yi, tell them that the net has been set. Don't be in a hurry to retract it. I'm such a big bait. It's not a big deal to catch the 4 main criminals. We should catch them all in one go. Yi Qian nodded and relayed the Director General's words. All of the leaders walked down the city gate tower one by one. All of the leaders who were participating in the celebration began to leave in an orderly manner. It was a dark mass below the city gate tower. The armed police officers who were maintaining order began to organize them to leave. Yi Qian's work had just begun. In the crowd, Yi Zhixiang, who was waiting in line to leave, quickly rewound her camera. When a blurry face flashed across the screen, she held her breath and panicked. She pressed the rewind button and slow motion button, her hands began to tremble. The blood drained from her face in a second. She did not see wrongly. She did not see wrongly. Chapter 1448. I'm not seeing things. I'm not seeing things. The person standing on the city gate tower is her. It's Yi Qian. It's really her. It's really her. Yi Zhixiang was so scared that her limbs were trembling. She stared at the frozen figure, unaware that the audience in front of her had already walked a few meters away. Cold sweat dripped from her forehead. Sun Yaozu, who was walking behind her, didn't know what had happened. His wife hadn't left yet. He impatiently urged her, "Why are you still standing there?" The audience behind them also urged her, "The lady in front, can you please leave first?" Yi Zhixiang didn't know how she walked out. When she woke up, she was already standing on the side of the street. She looked up blankly at her husband, then looked around. Finally, her gaze fell on the city gate tower. It's her. It's really her. I'm not seeing things. Yaozu, I'm not seeing things. She was so scared that her voice couldn't be heard clearly. It was so light that she didn't have any confidence. Sun Yaozu, who was fat, was sweating all over. He was about to take off his sunglasses to wipe the sweat off his forehead with a tissue. He did not notice his wife's strange behavior. He took off his sunglasses and used a tissue to cover his blind eye. He casually replied, "What do you mean I didn't see wrong?" "Yi Qian. I just said that I saw Yi Qian." Yi Zhixiang, who had been looking at the city gate tower, blinked lightly and said in a dry voice, "I saw Yi Qian standing on the city gate tower. I'm not seeing things. She's really standing on the city gate tower. She's standing with the country's leader." Sun Yaozu didn't believe her. The muscles on his face trembled. He scolded Yi Zhixiang, "Are you crazy? See for yourself." Yi Zhixiang handed him the camcorder they had brought back from their overseas trip. "Look carefully. See if it's her." Sun Yaozu, who had snatched the camcorder, took a look and fell silent. Then, the muscles on his face twitched. He gritted his teeth and said with a ferocious expression, "Damn it. It's really her. It's really that bastard." Yi Qian, whom Sun Yaozu wished he could end with his own hands, was sitting in the car. She was sitting in the car that was used to pick up the Director General, and her gaze was cold as she looked straight ahead. On the side of the road, two men stuck their heads out to take a look. They took out their phones and dialed a group of numbers. "Committee member, the car just passed by. We can't see clearly how many people are inside. No matter how many people there are, we're going to do it. Ha ha ha, we're going to succeed. We'll all become celebrities and heroes in the country." Someone replied with a loud laugh, full of ferocity. At noon, all the streets were once again open to traffic. Yi Qian's bulletproof car entered the ring road and began to drive towards the suburbs of Beijing. "There are 2 cars following behind us. Speed up." From the rearview mirror in the center of the car, Yi Qian saw that there were 2 heavy trucks following closely behind, trying to attack from both sides. "Drive towards Tongzhou." The driver was the soldier who had trained with Yi Qian. He took a look from the rearview mirror, and his chiseled face turned cold. "They want to run us over." "Yes, that's why we're going in the direction of Tongzhou. The highway there is newly repaired, so there are fewer cars." Yi Qian's lips curled up slightly. A faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He was calm, and even a little excited. "Let's start with a round of Fast and Furious." "Fast and Furious?" The soldier couldn't help but laugh. He held the steering wheel with one hand and gave Yi Qian an OK sign with his right hand. He began to deliberately tail the 2 heavy trucks behind them. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.